Hello, everyone. Welcome to the North American International Championships Victory Road co-stream. My name is Cedric Bernier, and I am joined by Andrew Tham on the mic for Finals Sunday. How you doing, Andrew?
We've had some amazing competition coming from Friday. It's already been 2 days of exciting matches in the Masters division, but we're going to be showcasing on Championship Sunday the juniors and seniors finals as well as our Masters division finals. So why don't we talk about the junior division first? They're going to get on stage in just a moment. But let's talk about Asher Garrett versus Damon Zhu.
Absolutely. I feel like the junior division and the senior division don't really get the same love as the Masters division, just because throughout the Swiss portion of the tournament, that's all we see is the Masters division. But we have some really excellent competitors in both of our younger divisions today. As you mentioned, Asher and Damon. Damon actually a 7-time regional champion, and Asher a finalist in this season in Seattle. So absolutely going to be two of the junior division's strongest players going up against each other here.
Yeah, and because they're already regional champions in their division, they are guaranteed a spot into the World Championships in San Francisco in a few months before we start the next season, which also means that they are not going to need to get the qualification for Worlds at this event, but they are still trying to write their names in the history books. And also, as well, they could be fighting for that additional prizing. The winner of their division in is going to get $5,000 US, while second place is going to get $3,000.
Yeah, absolutely a pretty penny for either the juniors or the seniors. Absolutely would be happy to get that amount of money at that age. Wouldn't know what to do with it outside of maybe Pokemon cards and video games, but they absolutely have at least earned 3,000 between the two of them, and now fighting over that last $2,000 to get to the 5,000 payout, but also fighting for the pride of being the North American International Championship in their division. It's an illustrious club, and I think one thing that we don't really focus on is the Masters division. You're in the Masters forever, but the juniors and seniors, they really only have a little bit of time in their division to actually claim those titles. So if you want to do it in juniors or seniors, the seniors only having 3 years, and then the juniors aging up at a roughly 12 years old. So yeah, just keep that in mind. The level of play we're going to be seeing from these really young trainers is going to be extremely high for their age group, just some of the strongest players in their divisions.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the strongest Pokemon trainers that are in the Masters division have done extremely well in previous age divisions. So if you are able to take a North American International Championship victory here, and you're going to be aging up into the seniors or from seniors into the Masters division, you are going to have one leg up on the competition. You just might start winning in those divisions as well.
Absolutely, that training is huge difference in actually being able to beat the other juniors to be so effective coaching.
Yeah, you also have to imagine that if your coach is the same person, that these players would have at least talked to each other at some point before this tournament. Maybe they're familiar with each other's game and they know what their Pokemon they're going to be running into. So we'll just have to see how well their Pokemon training has been played, especially overnight, because these Pokemon trainers do get to have that additional practice before going into the championship finals. We should be getting started soon. It looks like we're going to have a quick interview. The players are getting started on the stream. Our lovely host, Lee Provost, is going to be talking to some of the parents at the moment. So we'll be getting started in just a moment. And right now, we'll get started with their team sheets in just a moment. But I know that we're looking ahead to some of the other matches. It's going to be in the seniors division and the Masters division, especially in the Masters division. We saw earlier Eric Rios versus Francesco Piopero. Going to be running a very similar team. Same 6 Pokemon in that Garchomp, Mega Aerodactyl, and Charizard Y. It's something to look out for. Let's go into the matchup we're going to be seeing here in our juniors division finals, Asher Garrett versus Damon Zhu. Right now, we're going to be seeing the Mega Frostlass paired with the Mega Skill Villain for Asher. You can see the results here. Indianapolis top 4, Houston top 8, Seattle regional finalist. Yes, we can hear you. Welcome back in, Cedric.
At least Andrew can hear me. Not entirely sure if the stream can hear me. We'll see in just a moment. But yeah, of course, Asher Garrett versus Damon Ju. I would definitely say that Damon is, I would say, the favorite coming into this, having reached the North American International Championships finals in 2024 and also 7 times regional championship wins, whereas Asher, a little bit less decorated, but still absolutely one of the best players in the juniors division, of course, taking it to the finals of the Seattle 2026, getting that second place finish there. Both these players now qualified for the World Championship. But getting into the actual teams, of course, we have the Mega Frostlass and the Mega Scoville in combination with the Lycanroc Dusk form, a combination that proved to be really effective at the Turin special event just a week ago.
Yeah, we've been seeing this team being piloted by some of our Masters Division trainers. It has been proven to be a very strong composition, having a slight leg up on those Mega Charizard Y team, especially in one of the hard counters in this Lycanroc. Having access to priority rock type damage and also giving you access to that close combat to start hitting your opposing Kingambits and other fighting type weak Pokemon. Let's go over and talk about Damon Zoo, who's going to be running the more niche Mega Delphox Mega Evolution Pokemon. It's going to be paired with that Eternal Flower Floette.
Yeah, I think this is another team that did quite well at the Turin special event, reaching the finals overall. So slightly outplacing the Lycanroc teams just a little bit. I think that team wasn't particularly well prepared for the Delphox. In fact, the speed advantage that the Lycanrocs were expecting to have over the Fire-type Mega Pokemon, of course, the Mega Delphox outspeeding even those Lycanrocs. You can still take some hits from those Accelerocs, but it being only a 2-time super effective move instead of the 4-time super effective against the more common Charizard, absolutely a boon in the Mega Delphox team's favor. As we are going to get into the battle, of course, Asher Garrett versus Damon Zoo. Let's get into it.
Yeah, on the lead for Damon in this game number 1, it's going to be the Incineroar in the Kingambit onto the field. Going to be dropping that Intimidate. Onto Asher's side of the field, going to be bringing that Basculegion and Scovillain. Scovillain does have access to its Mega Stone, could go for a Mega Evolution. If the Kingambit were to attack into it, it would get burned by that Spicy Spray ability that it gained access to in the Pokemon Legends ZA DLC. The Incineroar being a fire type naturally would not be able to get burned here. So we'll just have to see how this turn plays out.
Yeah, the Kingambit on the side of Damon really threatening a Sucker Punch into that Basculegion as the Mega Evolution, the Scovillain doesn't choose to Mega Evolve, maybe fishing for a Moody boost on this turn. And speaking of fish, the Basculegion goes for the Protect, doesn't want to take a Sucker Punch, just trying to stall out the Fake Out pressure that Damon had active on the board with the Incineroar, but fully taking advantage of that Fake Out, doesn't attack into either Protects. Damon sets up the Swords Dance on the Black Class's Kingambit, as we see a Special Defense boost on the Scovillain and a speed drop. The speed drop could be important at this point, may no longer be able to outspeed and overheat the Kingambit, but the special defense not immediately effective.
What an amazing call from Damon, recognizing that you're putting so much pressure onto this Basculegion with both of your dark types, and you have the ability to just go for that sword stance immediately, not trying to take anything there. Gonna get that +2. The Basculegion still being threatened by both of the Incineroar and the Kingambit. You do have the Scovillain. It did get that special defense boost, which is not going to matter against 2 physical attacking Pokemon. But this Kingambit, even if we're to get burned by this Mega Scovillain, is not going to be dealing with that for now. It's going to be a switch out into Asher's own Kingambit.
Yeah, didn't like those boosts or the drop, but just goes for the Wave Crash. No Sucker Punch coming out from Damon's Kingambit, as the Wave Crash is able to take the knockout on the Incineroar. Not a Mystic Water set. Oh, but the critical hit is all that it needed to be able to take that Incineroar out. That's a huge boon. No longer going to be able to intimidate the Basculegion on future turns. However, the Kingambit is answering back in turn, going to Kowtow Cleave, but not the Scovillain on the field. It is now the Kingambit able to resist that. Doesn't love taking it, but still out of range of a 2-hit KO from the Kowtow Cleave. But the Basculegion, big risk there. Could have been Sucker Punched.
Absolutely. The Basculegion getting that critical hit, even though it was intimidated, means it's going to bypass that attack drop and get the 1-hit knockout into the Incineroar. Basculegion getting some pretty good damage on the board, as it's going to go for a Protect, just trying to make sure that it does not get hit by any of Kingambit's attacks, or even this Matcha Gotcha from the Sinistcha, which is actually going to be moving before both Kingambits here, Cedric.
Yeah, no Sucker Punches once again from either of these trainers. Matcha Gotcha does have the burn chance, but it isn't going to activate here. Oh, that's a lot of damage. The Matcha Gotcha is going to put it in range for the Kowtow Cleave. Perfect double up from Damon, taking another hit with the Kowtow Cleave. The Sinistcha not under a lot of threat there, just goes for the attack, does have the Kessie Berry to be able to survive a Last Respects if it had come out, and the Kingambit safe from a Wave Crash.
And the Skull Villain coming back into the field, still has a Mega Evolution available. The Basque Legion also now has access to an additional stack of its last respect attack, meaning that it is now a base 100 base power move, which means you can potentially go into that Sinistra trying to get a one-hit knockout, but you have to keep in mind that the Sinistra on Damon's side is running that Cassette Berry, meaning that any ghost-type attacks into that spot is not going to do that much.
Once again, taking defensive positioning, Scovillain going for the Protect, and Damon likes that idea too, goes for Protect on the King Gambit. See what the Basque Legion went for, starting off its onslaught with the last respects, breaking that Cassette Berry. It is at -1, so not doing as much as it normally would. We see would have done about 2/3 of the HP on that Sinistra with the Intimidate. Let's see how it answers back. It is going for the Trick Room, setting up the speed advantage. Uncertain between the Scovillain and the King Gambit how those speeds match up, but the King Gambit and the Scovillain absolutely slower than the Basque Legion. That's a special attack boost and a special defense drop on the Scovillain from the Moody.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to see that special defense drop on the Skull Villain, meaning you're going to take a little bit more damage from an attack from the Sinistra. But getting that +2 in your special attack means that a potential overheat into the King Gambit or even the Sinistra spot should be able to pick up a KO, and you're only going to go back down to neutral. Skull Villain going to go for its Mega Evolution on this turn.
Yeah, it takes its time, but is finally in the position maybe it wants to be to either redirect, activate that Spicy Spray. Yeah, it is the Rage Powder. Spicy Spray, of course, if you are attacked by a move, it will burn the target from the other side. Doesn't need to be contact. Kowtow Cleave at +2. Black Glasses. Is it going to knock out the Scovillain? It does take the knockout. One hit KO. You, of course, are burned, but now with the +2, essentially back to parity on the King Gambit. But a huge knockout, taking the King Gambit in the Trick Room as the Macha Gotcha is the follow-up. Going to do a lot of damage to this Basque Legion. Not quite a knockout, but healing a lot of damage on this Sinistra, near all the way back up to full HP. Let's see how the Basque Legion is able to respond after it takes its own healing of the Citrus Berry, of course. It is the Wave Crash at -1, not going to do a lot of damage. Yeah, as we see, King Gambit still very healthy at the end of the turn.
Yeah, I thought that maybe the Skull Villain, because of how tanky it is naturally, especially if you train it in its bulk, would maybe be able to survive an attack from the King Gambit, but it's going to go down in one hit. As the Basque Legion also taking that additional damage from the Macha Gotcha, still hanging on. But now that Asher only has 2 Pokemon left, the Basque Legion is going to be staying on the field for the rest of this game, still with an Intimidate drop on. The Sneasel are going to be switching into this battlefield. It's going to be tough for the Sneasel to get anything, because if you want to go for close combat into King Gambit, you have to read if Damon is going to want to go for Rage Powder, redirecting into that Ghost-type Pokemon.
Yeah, the struggle is also that the Trick Room is still on the field. Speed advantage for Damon for both of the Pokemon as the King Gambit starts to turn off with the Protect. Maybe doesn't want to take a Fake Out Wave Crash double target and risk a Macha Gotcha for the KO, as the Sinistra also protecting. Wants to dispel that Fake Out pressure, but is wasting one turn of Trick Room in order to do that. Both of the Pokemon on the field do have, actually no, just the, not entirely sure of the team sheet whether the Sneasler has a Protect, but the Basque Legion definitely does. Could be an opportunity to stall an additional turn of Trick Room coming up here.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens in this match. Damon does have this Burn King Gambit, so its damage output, despite having that Sword Stance boost, isn't going to be doing nearly as much as it was earlier in this game. Sneasler still at full HP as that White Herb. Sinistra going for the Rage Powder to start this turn.
Yeah, Rage Powder redirecting any attacks from Asher's side. But first, the King Gambit strikes with the Kowtow Cleave, gonna knock out that Basque Legion. Super effective, but at such low HP, definitely an over knockout there as Basque Legion faints and goes back to the Pokeball. Oh, great call from Damon, Rage Powdering on the perfect turn as it redirects the close combat. Definitely targeted towards the King Gambit. Normally would be 4 times super effective. Now down to no effect, immunity on the Ghost-type Sinistra.
Yeah, and with only 1 Pokemon left for Asher against a Ghost type in the Sinistra, you're not going to be able to do that much damage if the Sinistra just goes for this Rage Powder here. The King Gambit should be able to just keep swinging with as much Kowtow Cleaves as you want, especially in this Trick Room mode. Only doing about 1/3 of Sneasler's HP, but you'll gladly take that damage. Gunk Shot going to be used into that Sinistra. How much damage is it going to possibly do? Only above 50%, but you are going to inflict that poison.
Yeah, the Sinistra now poisoned, so going to be losing a little bit of HP over time. May even be in range of another Gunk Shot in combination with the Poison Tick. However, by continuing to go for the Rage Powders, you can just get consistent damage with this King Gambit. And although Sneasler is one of the strongest Pokemon in the metagame, it only having single target damage makes it very easy for Damon to continue switching in Pokemon and just double attacking to take the KOs, as the Sinistcha is going to stick to that game plan. Goes for the Rage Powder to redirect the Gunk Shot. Let's see if it's able to knock out, but yeah, not quite, but as good as gone with the Poison Ticking at the end of the turn, as Kowtow Cleave will go into the Sneasler, maybe in range of a Sucker Punch on the next turn, but as mentioned, going to be really hard for the Sneasler to make the comeback regardless.
Yep, Damon is going to be losing that Sinistcha due to the end of the turn poison inflicted damage, but still has one more Pokemon on the back, and we still haven't even seen the Mega Evolution. It's going to be the Delphox coming into the match. Mega Delphox has been a sleeper pick of a Pokemon to use in the Pokemon VGC circuit for Regulation MA, because it has a pretty decent matchup into certain Pokemon in the field, being a Fire and Psychic type Pokemon. We're going to see the Mega Evolution. Mega Delphox is on the board.
Absolutely. Going for that Mega Evolution, gaining the Levitate. Not so relevant in this matchup, but definitely important for others, as Asher taking this opportunity to protect, really just trying to stall out some time, perhaps to think of a game plan for the next game in this set, given the Swords Dance plus the Fake Out combination was so devastating in this game one.
That is going to be the concession. Damon is going to be winning game number one in a pretty solid fashion. Leading that Incineroar made it so that the Basket Legion, despite getting that critical hit, wasn't going to be doing that much damage. And especially on that turn one, getting the call correctly, realizing you were not going to be in danger from an attack from both the Basket Legion and the Scoville, setting up the Sword Stance and then doing so much damage onto Asher's Pokemon.
Yeah, there was one advantage gained early on for Asher, getting the Wave Crash to knock out the Incineroar, but after that, it was the Swords Dance King Gambit show for the rest of the game, so it's got to be an adjustment there. As we go through the previous turns, we saw that critical knockout of the Kowtow Cleave into the Scoville, and then it just continued following up with those knockouts. The King Gambit, absolutely the MVP of Game 1 for Damon, and then the Delphox coming up, the main Mega on the team, or rather, one of the main Megas, also the Floette, but comes out late game to do the final cleanup.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how Asher is going to make a slight adjustment in this match. The Mega Skull Villain did get one hit KO by the Kowtow Cleave, but it was also because you were playing a little bit passive, deciding to go for the Protect, maybe trying to get a improved Moody boost to your defenses or special attack to just allow yourself to do a little extra damage. But it looks like we're immediately going into game number 2 here. Damon Zoo up one match in this set. Going to be bringing out the Mega Delphox and the Sneasler, a complete switch up from game number 1. And Sneasler and Scoville for Asher.
Yeah, an aggressive switch up from Damon on championship point at the North American International Championships, leading another fake out and setup Pokemon, but this time the Sneasler and the Delphox facing up against the Scoville and the Sneasler. Honestly, an incredible matchup for the Delphox here, and can't be burned by the Spicy Spray from the Scoville, and no strong moves coming out from that, and does have the potential to naturally outspeed the Sneasler on future turns with its Mega Evolution, as we see a defensive switch out, doesn't like the position on Asher's side, getting that Basket Legion in to a little bit more aggressively threaten the Pokemon on Damon's side. The Mega Evolution comes out. Really important to gain that speed boost and the special attack boost to be able to potentially one-hit knock out the opposing Sneasler. Oh, fake out from Sneasler on Damon's side is going to outspeed, and it gives the opportunity for Delphox to set up a nasty plot. This thing is raring and ready to go on its broomstick, ready to fire off really powerful Psychics or Heat Waves.
Another passive turn 1 for Asher, deciding to switch out the Scoville and not going to go for that Protect. And Damon getting another Pokemon with a +2 boost, but this time it's going to be the Nasty Plot used for the Mega Delphox to increase its special attack. So now those Heat Waves and Side Shocks into both Pokemon on Asher's side of the field could start doing really strong damage, potentially getting those one-hit KOs or additional status effects.
Yeah, the Psyshock important on the Delphox has the capability to knock out the opposing Sneasler and hit the Basket Legion on its weaker physically defensive side. Damon doesn't like the position of their Sneasler, switches into the King Gambit, now able to pressure with Sucker Punch on later turns into the Basket Legion if it can survive, as it is a Protect on the Delphox, perfectly baits out that Gunk Shot, not going to be taking any damage from that, or the Wave Crash perfectly are also targeted into the Delphox. Great position for the King Gambit. Would have been susceptible to a close combat aggressive call from Asher on the switch, but comes in cleanly.
Yeah, now you have this King Gambit threatening a KO onto the Basket Legion. We don't know how strong or how bulky this Basket Legion is, especially against a Black Glasses King Gambit. And the Sneasler might not be fast enough to attack before the Delphox, and the Delphox again is at +2 in its special attack. So any attack realistically into this Sneasler just might get the KO. We're in the prime turn here, I believe, as the Basket Legion is going to go for that protect. It's not going to attack this turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't want to take a Sucker Punch, but no Sucker Punch at all from Damon, as it was the Heat Wave. Let's see if that's able to connect. It is on the Sneasler. Is it a knockout? Yes, a one-hit knockout on the Sneasler after that fake-out chip damage may have been the difference. Could have been close depending on the training of the Sneasler, and Damon didn't go for the Sucker Punch. Just going for the Kowtow Cleave, maybe covering a switch, but yeah, also covering for the Aqua Jet. Had it tried to supersede the priority bracket and dodge that Sucker Punch, a really smart call from Damon.
Damon has just been playing this match so safely. Asher just trying to make a higher level read, but is just not getting the calls right, not able to predict when Damon is going to go for Sucker Punch or Kowtow Cleave here. Going to be bringing in the Scoville, and that is going to be the mega of choice. Are we going to see another double protect from the... Actually, no, the Basket Legion just protected, so you can't go for a protect safely with the Basket Legion. The Scoville could go for a protect here, but my guess it would have to go for its Mega Evolution, just trying to use Rage Powder as well to keep the Basket Legion up so that you can attack into this Delphox slot.
Yeah, one advantage gained. You have the Rage Powder available on the Scoville, which could redirect any attention from that Basket Legion, but the Incineroar is going to enter the field. Risky against the Basket Legion unless it went for the last respects into that Delphox spot, which it would tank perfectly. Mega Evolution coming out from the Scoville, and now the Spicy Spray active. If a move comes out into it from the King Gambit, will be burned on that King Gambit. Hasn't set up the Swords Dance like the previous game, so may be able to tank that a fair bit better, as the Basket Legion did lock into the last respects into the Delphox slot. Oh, that's a huge swing. If it had been Wave Crash, would have done a whole lot of damage, but this last respects, as we can see, dealing pitiful damage, as King Gambit takes the opportunity, doesn't bite into the Scoville, and goes for the Swords Dance. Now perfectly set up to take knockouts left and right if Overheat doesn't come out from the Scoville in future turns.
Yeah, that was a missed opportunity from the Basket Legion. Obviously, if you're playing with the Basket Legion, you do not want to use Wave Crash if you do not have to, because otherwise you're taking unnecessary recoil damage. So going for last respects there, knowing you already have a +1 stack, and now it is a base 100 move, you can attack into that Delphox spot, but because of the Intimidate drop and the Dark typing, you don't get as much damage here. Protect from both of Asher's Pokemon, just trying to survive the turn, trying to see what Damon is going to go for, just the fake out into this Scoville and the King Gambit going to the Kowtow into the Basket Legion.
Yeah, I think an interesting position where on one level you could go for a Rage Powder and just take the burn on the King Gambit. However, you could also assume there is no Sucker Punch coming into either the Pokemon. We haven't seen that from Damon yet, but if you go for the Overheat and it doesn't target the Scoville with the Sucker Punch, you could take a knockout with Overheat. And maybe you want to hedge your bets, go for an Aqua Jet in that Incineroar slot to not risk Sucker into that, but it is going to be Damon. Doesn't like the position, switches into the Fake Out once again, and doesn't risk the King Gambit. Really smart play from this extremely young but talented player. Goes to Protect as it was Scoville Overheat. No risk, goes for the Protect as we see the Wave Crash going into this Sneasler. Will do a lot of damage, but it is at -1 from the Intimidate and is not able to take the knockout. Perfect training on Sneasler.
Yeah, now the Sneasler being able to switch into the battlefield has fake out pressure into this Scoville. You do have to keep in mind that if you go for the fake out here into the Scoville, the Spicy Spray will activate, causing a burnless Sneasler, and could potentially put it on a timer to get knocked out. But it's just going to be a quick switch out on the Basket Legion, getting rid of that Intimidate drop, going into your own King Gambit on this turn.
Yeah, King Gambit enters the field, not under threat unless there is a close combat into the Ghost type, as the Scoville protects, doesn't want to take a fake out in combination potentially with the Kowtow Cleave, but it is a Swords Dance. Damon taking every opportunity with these fake outs to get stronger and stronger. And now if Sucker Punch was ever a doubt on the Scoville, that's a clean knockout. And we saw it was already very close to a 2-hit KO with the Kowtow on the King Gambit in the previous turn. That damage has just increased even further.
This is a +4 King Gambit. Not often do you get to see any Pokemon in the Pokemon video game get 2 boosts of its Sword Stance, but now it has +4. It is going to be threatening extremely powerful damage. We already saw, like you said, it get a KO into the Scoville. with just +2. And we're going to go for the quick guard, so any priority type attack is going to be used into either Pokemon or not going to be working. But a Sucker Punch at +4 is going to be enough to pick up the Scovillain. It doesn't mind getting burned here if it means you get your Mega Evolution off the board.
Yeah, I think that's a big read. Goes for the quick guard, so no longer susceptible to Sucker Punch on the Sneasler. But however, Asher, things didn't go so great with the Scovillain going down, but at least is able to take the Sneasler for its troubles. But yeah, really excellent read from Damon. Could have easily been a Kowtow Cleave, calling out a Rage Powder, a strong defensive play from Asher in that position, but decided, you know what, it was Overheat last turn, it's going to be Overheat this turn, the last time that the Scovillain was active on the field, not going for Protect. Let's take that knockout.
And here comes the last Pokemon for Asher. The Basket Legion going to be switching into this battlefield once again, as Damon is going to be switching in that Incineroar, dropping Intimidate onto the Basket Legion, but does give the King Gambit on Asher's side a +1 boost due to that Defiant ability. But you're still staring down a King Gambit that is burned. How much does a +2 boosted or +4 boosted King Gambit do with a Sucker Punch into the Basket Legion? We'll just have to find out.
Yeah, I think the struggle is there is no low kick on this King Gambit. Damage into this King Gambit on Damon's side is spare, but you at least get the Wave Crash active, taking that knockout once again onto the Incineroar, where you're going to take a lot of recoil. However, I don't think the King Gambit is lacking in damage into it, as the Kowtow Cleave is going to target into it, taking the knockout, and now it is King Gambit against King Gambit, but a huge Pokemon advantage for Damon's side. You, of course, have the Delphox in the back still, and I'm sure that Damon can taste this championship with the +4, unfortunately burned, so now effectively a little bit less strong. But Damon Zoo, after forfeit from Asher, is crowned your North American International Champion.
Congratulations for being the first Pokemon trainer in the video game to win their division. Damon Zoo is going to be your Pokemon VG Junior Champion at the North American International Championships.
Yeah, and just excellent awareness throughout that match when pressure was being exerted by the Fake Out, knew when to get it in, and the Rage Powders in the first game to make sure that the setups were complete and never taking a risk in the face of the threats from the Overheat Scovillain, always either protecting or keeping it under pressure with those Sucker Punches or Fake Outs. It's been an incredible run for Damon, and it's only ending in victory, going 8-1 overall in the Swiss portion of the tournament, and now one last victory in the top cut bracket. An incredible victory, but nothing to take away from Asher. Also 8-1 throughout the tournament and made it to this finals in the first place. I believe Asher also has one more year in the juniors division, so has one more chance to make it back to the finals and potentially win this tournament. Absolutely someone to be looking out for in the junior division in this next year. But yeah, unfortunately wasn't able to take it here, but not to take away from the accomplishment. Finalist, an absolutely incredible performance. But Damon now was a NAIC finalist in 2024, now has the 2026 trophy and is able to take that home. Incredible finish for Damon.
Yep, absolutely. And we have to commend, Damon's King Gambit doing the most amount of damage in this match, being able to set up the Swords Dance multiple times in game 2 and setting up the Swords Dance in game 1 was the pivotal turning point in the match because of the Fake Out pressure that Damon was able to provide with the Incineroar, meaning that you can get those boosts. And we did see that Asher was playing very patiently against the King Gambit, not really trying to find a way to get a Pokemon in the right position to get rid of it on the board state.
Yeah, there's one particular turn I want to point out that was actually very technically impressive, actually. The turn that the Delphox actually switched out in front of the Basket Legion, that could have gone for a Wave Crash, but because there was one Pokemon down on Asher's side, didn't want to waste the HP, got the Incineroar switch in safely. However, we are going to focus on the main stage interview now with Damon.
And how long you been playing now?
3 years.
Incredible. That match as well, I want to talk about the King Gambit because you just kept pressing Swords Dance. You're getting so much damage. Was that always the game plan? That was brave plays.
I was just trying to read, I guess. It wasn't part of the game plan.
That's all that experience, folks. Now, you're the champion, and as champion, I want to give you an opportunity to thank anyone else you want to thank or any final words from you.
My coach, Azulai, and my friends and family, I guess.
One more time, everyone, for your NAIC Junior Champion. Big congratulations. Now for some analysis on that match.
Congratulations
Absolutely.
once again to Damon for being the North American International Champion, Juniors Division winner. We've saw some great matches so far, through the first 2 games. We're going to be looking forward now to our Seniors match. Cedric, who do we have upcoming now?
Yeah, up next we of course have Connor versus Mateo, 2 of the strongest players in the seniors division going to be going at it. Going to be an impressive match. I believe we may be sending it to a quick break just for us to get set up, as well as the main stage to get set up with those players on the stage, but going to be a great matchup between those 2 players. So stay tuned for that. We will return shortly.
Welcome back, Pokemon trainers. We just witnessed the junior division winner, Damon Zhu, being able to complete the victory at the North American International Championship. So congratulations to David. But now we're going to be moving on into our senior division finals here at NAIC. Cedric, who do we got to talk about today?
Today, we're going to be chatting about Connor and Mateo, our finalists in the senior division. Of course, some of the strongest players across seniors. Connor, the 2026 Toronto Regional Champion, and a 2024 Charlotte victory as well. And has one of the highest championship points counts in all of the senior division. So absolutely a titan of the game, with his last year in seniors being this finals and the World Championship, which of course, Connor and his opponent Mateo have automatic invitations to, probably by championship points, but now guaranteed, having made it to top 4 of the international. And then Mateo has a European regional championship in Frankfurt, and has 2 regional finals and a top 4 at the EYC in this year. So incredible trainers. We're going to have a high quality of play between them here.
Yeah, we get to see a little bit of a unique Pokemon team. Often get to see in this regulation MA format. We'll see those teams just shortly, but I do want to give a quick shout out to Mateo for using a Toxapex and Snorlax composition. We did see that earlier, I believe, on Thomas Irvin's team at the Masters Division Phase 2 towards the end of the Swiss format. And it was a very interesting set. Do you think we could talk about that a little bit more? It has some interesting tools to use.
Absolutely, yeah. A team that was featured by Thomas Irwin, I believe, on this side stream. So if you want to check out Dawei C versus Thomas Irwin, check that out. It was an incredible match, but ultimately Dawei came out on top in the win-in for the top cut bracket. So came close, but not quite. However, on Mateo's side, of course, now has the opportunity to take the Snorlax and the Toxapex combination to a victory. It's an interesting combo. You have essentially a lot of status potential on the team, but at least on Thomas's, it was running the Protect instead of the Baneful Bunker to allow for the Snorlax to go for yawns. Of course, you can't yawn and put a Pokemon to sleep if it's already poisoned by the Baneful Bunker or a Toxic, like was more used by Wolfglick, but it's an interesting team for sure. Really focuses on setting up those yawns to allow for the partners to take advantage of those sleep turns.
Yeah, I know historically in VGC, Snorlax was used as a belly drum Pokemon, especially in Generation 7 paired with Mimikyu. So instead of offering that high octane offense with your normal type attacks like Body Slam or other moves, or using your Z crystals as well, deciding to go for a more defensive set with that yawn, which we have seen used pretty well in the past. I know that Gastrodon in Generation 8, most recently one of the best Pokemon in that format in Series 12, was able to just stick on the field for as long as possible, disrupting the entire team, using yawn, forcing switch outs, and then just going for alternating protect so that you can get those sleep-induced turns active as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it, but the yawn, just such an effective tool. Normally, you would want to put a Pokemon to sleep immediately, but the decision that you have to make if you've been yawned is that you can either stay in and take the sleep. Sometimes that is the correct decision for the flow of the battle, and you just eat the sleep turns, or do you switch out and make yourself a Pokemon in the back be susceptible to targeting from either the partner, just an offensive attack, or another yawn to keep the cycle going. But of course, we have our senior finalists there. Connor versus Mateo, 2 of the strongest players in the seniors division. Look at those accomplishments, Andrew.
It is very impressive. Let's talk about Connor first. Toronto regional champion. He was at Anaheim just last year and getting a world's top 4 placement. New Orleans last year and also a top 4 placement. And then New Orleans once again in a top 8 placement. So this could be the writing on the wall, going from top 8 to top 4 and potentially now into a finals list placement and ultimately winning this year. We'll just have to see. We're going to see this team as well for Connor. It's going to be that Charizard Y and Floette team that we've seen so many times throughout the entire tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. Has been dominating in the Masters division. I believe didn't make it to the Masters finals, the highest placing being Shoma Hanami, of course, in good company, absolutely, if you're using the same team as Shoma. But the Charizard, Mega Floette, Basque Legion, Garchomp, King Gambit, and the Whimsicott. Some of the details on this team, the Iron Head on the King Gambit could be important. Sometimes we see a 4 attack set with the Iron Head and the low kick. Sometimes we see just the low kick, and then sometimes we see the Swords Dance. But could be important for matching up against the opposing team. No ability to go for those Swords Dances to kind of overwhelm the defensive pieces that we have on Mateo's side.
Yeah, definitely want to give a quick shout out that the Charizard is actually a modest stat alignment, whereas the Floette is a timid stat alignment. So that's going to be some interesting speed interactions as we now going to look over to Mateo's side of the field. It's going to be running that Frostlass that we just were able to see in the last match, but did not bring to the match at all. Blizzard is going to be offering some pretty strong stab attacks. Getting those 100% accuracy blizzards in the snow is going to be really good to have. Basket Legion is going to be running that Adamant Stout alignment, but it's going to be holding that Focus Sash, meaning that it's going to need to take at least 2 attacks in order to get the KO here. And this King Gambit going for a pretty standard set of this Kowtow Cleave Sucker Punch with that low kick and having the Chopple Berry just as a little bit of insurance against other fighting type attacks.
Yeah, I want to point out that there is a lot more fire type resistances that we have on Mateo's team than we see typically and the teams in regulation MA and Pokemon Champions. The Basket Legion doesn't love taking a Heat Wave or Weather Ball, but at least can switch on a couple. Toxapex absolutely loves those, has Infestation to be able to answer back, Wide Guard to block the Heat Waves, and then Recover to heal up any damage. And if you want to just switch in and out, you have the Regenerator as well. And then Thick Fat Snorlax effectively gives it in resistance to those fire type attacks as well.
Yeah, having Thick Fat means that you have a little bit of a better matchup into Charizard Y, so that you can be able to resist those attacks and then get some crucial double-edge damage in. I do want to point out that the Toxapex does not actually carry the Toxic Status condition, so that you could potentially stall out certain games. It does carry that Recover, so it's going to try to live the game a little bit longer. As we go into game number 1, Mateo versus Connor. Sneasler and Frostlass on the board for Mateo. Well, we do see this Eternal Flower, Floette, and Basket Legion going to be starting for Connor.
Yeah, absolutely rewarded by leading that Sneasler against the Floette. It is running Dire Claw, not the Gunk Shot. We have seen a little bit in this tournament, but as we can see on our end, the Floette on Connor's side, not a lot of investment into the HP, so maybe an indication that it might be able to be feinted by the Adamant Dire Claw from Sneasler. But getting into the turn, we see Mega Evolution straight off the board, the timid Floette going for the Mega Evolution first, maybe an indication of the speed matchup between the Frostsasses. Of course, or between the Megas. Both of their speed stats actually do change after the Mega Evolution, so going to be hard to gauge, but it is a modest Frostlass and a timid Mega Floette, so depending on how bulky the training is on the Frostlass on Mateo's side, could be outsped by the Frostlass on this turn. However, Fake Out Pressure could cause it not to act on this turn, as we see that come out, and it is the Unburden, not the Poison Touch Sneasler, so no chance to get a poison there. Mateo taking a defensive play entirely, just stalls out a little bit of the turn with the Fake Out and goes for the Aurora Veil to kick things off before the Basket Legion gets a big chunk of damage into the Frostlass with the Wave Crash, but of course boosted by the Snow and the Aurora Veil, not even a 2-hit KO.
Even still boosted by the Snow and the Aurora Veil, the Basket Legion was able to do just about 50% of damage. You can see how strong Basket Legion is in this format, carrying that Mystic Water, meaning you're going to get a boost by 20% for your water type attacks. We also saw in this mid-turn interaction, the Floette was faster than the other Frostlass on Mateo's side of the field, but it looks like the Frostlass is just going to be switching out for this Toxapex.
Yeah, really important. Forces his Frostlass off the field, given that it is the slower of the two Megas. It is the Floette actually even outspeeding the Sneasler. Light of Ruin comes out. Is it going to come into the Sneasler? It does connect, and it is not the knockout. A lot of recoil coming back Floette's way. If Dire Claw was ever a question on it, if it was going to knock out, it is going to do so now. Perfectly trained Sneasler on Mateo's side. We see why Mateo prioritized the Aurora Veil on that first turn. Knew that would be necessary to survive this attack, and the Toxapex enters the field for free. Wasn't going to take too much from those fairy type damage in general, but now is in a great spot to start spreading infestations to support Mateo's team.
Yep, and the King Gambit is going to be switching in onto this battlefield. It could try to use its Sucker Punch attack into the Sneasler to pick off a KO, forcing one of Mateo's Pokemon to come back into this match, but it is a risk. Sneasler could just go for the protect, or it could just withdraw into its Pokeball, going to be going out into his own King Gambit. With the Aurora Veil active, there's not going to be that much damage. Even the Aqua Jet is going to be doing some pitiful damage here.
Absolutely high physical defense on the King Gambit, and the Aurora Veil, like you pointed out, gets that in very safely, as Infestation is going to start chipping away at the Pokemon on Mateo's team. Not a move that deals a lot of damage up front, but the more turns a Pokemon is stuck on the battlefield, that's going to start to add up over the course of the battle. But this King Gambit, as we pointed out in the pregame, does have low kick on Mateo's side against the Iron Head on King Gambit for Connor, so a big differentiator there that allows the threat into the King Gambit on Connor's side.
And let's see what happens in this turn. Snow is still active for 2 more turns, so you want to try to keep this Mega Frostlass in the back so you can reset it up later. And the Aurora Veil still has 2 extra turns. Look at the damage that's been done to both Pokemon. Barely any damage has gone through. Wave Crash going to be activated. No Sucker Punch coming out from Mateo's Kingambit. Just going to go for the Wave Crash, getting some damage into itself from the recoil. But otherwise, not too much damage to return as the Kowtow Cleave is going to pick up the KO onto the Basket Legion.
Yeah, we see Mateo was a little frustrated, could have gone for the Sucker Punch for the knockout or the low kick on either of the Pokemon, gotten out a little bit better, but at least the mid-ground does knock out the Basket Legion and is still relatively healthy given the Aurora Veil. We see the value of that, able to survive all of these attacks. Looks like it was coverage with the Infestation. The Toxapex didn't have much to do outside of maybe going for a recover there, and given the leftovers healing it nearly back to full HP, definitely the best use of the turn there. As we see that chipping away at the Kingambit, didn't get hit by a low kick, but now it is going to be stuck on the field for the rest of the battle, given the 2 KOs that Mateo's already taken to the 0 that Connor has taken.
And here comes out the last Pokemon for Connor. It's going to be that Garchomp. It's going to be carrying a Citrus Berry, having access to attacks like Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Dragon Claw. So an Earthquake here into both the Kingambit and this Toxapex could be doing super effective damage, including that Sneasler that is in the back. But one has to be very careful that the Toxapex has access to Wide Guard, so any Earthquakes are not going to be doing that much damage.
Yeah, Sucker Punch is going to come out, identifying Earthquake. Probably, wouldn't be able to attack. The Sucker Punch is going to get the critical hit, but I think most likely might have been a Dragon Claw double up, unless you wanted to Earthquake your own Kingambit. As we do see, it was a Dragon Claw, now redirecting into the Toxapex, but given Connor's seeing how well the Kingambit for Mateo has taken hit so far, have to imagine had it been a double target there. But absolutely, you'll take that Sucker Punch damage into the Toxapex. But at this point, everything is pretty low on Mateo's side. Even though you do have the Pokemon disadvantage and this Toxapex is going to be hard to clear out quickly, everything's really in range of a Sucker Punch, including the Frostlass and the low HP Sneasler on the back. So although Connor has taken a lot of damage in this game, may be poised to make somewhat of a comeback if you can actually deal with this Toxapex over the course of the game.
Yeah, and the Garchomp hasn't taken a single point of damage so far, and the best threat to deal with the Garchomp is going to be this Mega Frostlass. It does have a little bit of HP remaining, just above 90 hit points left. Is it going to be able to try to stave off a Sucker Punch and attack combination from this Garchomp? Only Dragon Claw can really hit for guaranteed if the Toxapex is not going to go for this Wide Guard, but the Garchomp just going to protect this turn.
Yeah, goes for the Protect, doesn't want to take a Blizzard, and it looks like Connor went for a strong mid-ground play. Didn't want the Kingambit to bite a Sucker Punch into this Aurora Veil. Goes for the Kowtow. Is it going to be enough? It is going to be a KO. The Black Glass is pushing things over the edge against the Aurora Veil, and the Snow boosting the defense of the Ice type. However, Infestation doesn't go into the Garchomp, but it is just that low HP Sneasler in the back. So although Connor went down pretty early, down 4-2, it looks like this Kingambit and Garchomp may have just the juice it may take to beat the Toxapex, which has not yet gotten an Infestation on the Garchomp to start whittling away.
Yeah, because this Toxapex does not have access to Toxic, it cannot get that ramping damage up with the badly poisoned status condition. And now the Sneasler has to switch in here with only 6 hit points left. The Kingambit can be poised to just attack into the Sneasler if it wants with a Sucker Punch, but the Sneasler is going to be offering Fake Out. But it's going to go into that Garchomp, so it will take the Rough Skin's additional recoil damage. Going to be falling to that. And now the Toxapex is the only Pokemon on the field that it's going to be for Mateo, as the Kowtow Cleave is going to be attacking into that Toxapex.
Yeah, Kowtow, if it were even targeted into the Sneasler, redirects into that Toxapex, as Infestation does at least hit the Garchomp. But yeah, the Fake Out chip and the Infestation, not a whole lot. Things are going to slowly chip away at the remaining Pokemon on Connor's side. But yeah, this Toxapex at least does have a recover, so you can maybe make a read at some point that you're going to Earthquake your own Kingambit. But there is just the chance that with only the leftovers recovery, a Black Glass's Kowtow Cleave and a Dragon Claw will cleanly KO this Toxapex in a few turns without ever having to take that risk.
Yeah, and because the Toxapex does not have access to Baneful Bunker, it has Protect, you can just go for these Dragon Claws and not be fearful of getting poisoned again. Kowtow Cleave and Dragon Claw are just the safest moves to attack into. Looks like Toxapex is just going to have to go for that recover to just keep itself healthy through this turn, getting a little bit more leftovers recovery. And that is your play right now. But now Mateo is in a pin. Any critical hit here from either Pokemon and then a follow-up attack could just be enough to pick up this KO in the game for Connor.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting spot where Kowtow, Cleave, and Dragonclaw clearly aren't going to take the knockout, so the only way to burst this Toxapex down is with an Earthquake, but with King Gambit on the field, you may not want to do that unless you actually want to take the knockout and get things to a single target Earthquake, but it is just the Dragonclaw and the Kowtow, Cleave follow-up again. However, Mateo's not taking a lot of damage here, has the freedom to continue going for the Infestations or the Recovers, chooses Infestation this turn. Interesting call, not going to be able to heal up the damage from Recover.
Yep, does get a little bit of leftovers recovery here while still getting those Infestation chip damage into both the King Gambit and the Garchomp. Garchomp will eat its Citrus Berry as it went under 50% of its HP. But this Infestation damage is not doing as much as Mateo wants. He's still going to need a few extra turns for even just the King Gambit to go down. And the Toxapex did not click Recover in that last turn, so more than likely we'll have to go for a Protect here. And you would think that you would need a double Protect to maybe live a double up follow-up from Connor's 2 Pokemon.
Yeah, I think a real potential error in going for the Infestation instead of the Recover. The Toxapex at such slow HP, just free to continue doubling into that slot without ever having to Earthquake yourself. And the Aurora Veil was set up a couple turns ago, however, finally maybe ending as the snow leaves the field. We see Infestation continue to take down these Pokemon, but as soon as the Aurora Veil ends, yeah, these attacks that normally we're doing not that much are going to scale up significantly.
And there goes the Aurora Veil. So now this Toxapex is going to be threatened by even more damage than what we've been seeing so far when it was up. So a follow-up attack of Dragonclaw and Kowtow Cleave is the safest move for Connor to go to in order to lock up this game.
Yeah, I think the Citrus Berry as just an additional HP reservoir in the Garchomp make things way too difficult without the Baneful Bunker to either poison or a Toxic on the set somewhere. But the Toxapex is, to its merit, able to get a double Protect here, so healing a little bit more. Maybe if you can actually stall out this King Gambit, make it faint, and force the Garchomp to either choose a Dragonclaw or an Earthquake, which you can wide guard, and then within that 50-50, maybe you get a Recover off. That's really the only way at this point, but at this point with the King Gambit so healthy, you probably need another double Protect to be able to survive this double up still.
Ooh, the King Gambit is getting really low. Is there another turn of Infestation on that Pokemon? It could go down in this turn. Mateo, do you think he would have to go for a triple Protect in order to survive the turn again and let the Garchomp be the only Pokemon on this field? Or do you just rely on your Toxapex's bulk? It's going to be a triple Protect, but it's going to fail this time around. So a double up with the Dragonclaw should be enough with this Kowtow Cleave following up. And Connor, despite being down so many Pokemon in the early game, is going to be winning game number 1.
Yeah, props for identifying the win condition and going for it, but after not getting the additional HP from the Recover earlier in the battle, things just became a little bit too simplified for Connor, just continually able to go for the single targets, never had to interact with that Dragonclaw versus Earthquake call on the Toxapex with it having access to Wide Guard. Even though things got pretty dicey, the Infestation 1 tick away from beating the King Gambit, ultimately just the HP a little bit too low on the Toxapex. So on Mateo's side, what are you going to do in game 2? Just things looked like it was a really solid lead. The Sneasler was able to knock out the opposing Floette, even though it was slower. The Aurora Veil went up, but just didn't gain the ground necessary to close the game out in the final turns.
Yeah, I think the pivotal piece for Connor was being able to get rid of the Mega Frostlass, one of the biggest counters into Garchomp, being 4 times weak to Ice-type moves. Once you were able to remove that threat, the Garchomp was able to just threaten so much passive damage throughout the rest of the game by clicking those Dragon Claws and Earthquakes, and as well as just having the Rough Skin passive damage, also just inflicting damage into both the Toxapex and the Sneasler.
Yeah, I think just a masterful game 1 played by Connor, where although things went poorly in terms of the Pokemon count, just spread the damage out perfectly to where everything was in range of the priority that was necessary so that you could actually get things to a 1v1, or rather a 2v1, versus the Toxapex, which was necessary to win that game. So honestly, props to Connor. Absolutely easy to start to let things deteriorate after not taking an early KO you may be expecting, but was able to execute perfectly on the game plan to make things winnable still.
Let's see what kind of adjustments are we going to see both of these players make. Are we going to see a repeat of a King Gambit on Connor's side, or are we going to see something different like the Charizard going to be leading here? Sneasler and Frostlass going to be the lead once again for Mateo, as we're going to see a Charizard and a King Gambit. So it's going to be a little bit of a different matchup. The Weather Wars has begun.
Absolutely, this Mega Charizard Y much better poised against the Frostlass for sure, and then the Sneasler bit neutral, but still dealing a lot of damage with the Heat Wave. And if it's King Gambit in the back, not going to be easily able to switch in defensively like it was in the previous match. And the King Gambit on Connor's side does have access to the Iron Head, can do a little bit more damage than if it didn't have that option against the Sneasler, but is definitely scared of a close combat on the field. May want to take an early exit or at least try to threaten that Frostlass. As we go into the turn, the Frostlass does not like the matchup against the slower, most likely Mega Evolution with the Heat Wave on the Charizard, as King Gambit also leaves the field, not loving the presence of a close combat. If a close combat goes into that, Garchomp going to take a Roughtskin chip, which may be the difference maker in it fainting to a Heat Wave, depending on the training of the Sneasler.
Absolutely, and let's see how this turn plays out. The Drought is going to be activated from the Mega Charizard Y, bringing out the Harsh Sunlight, but it's going to be the Fake Out into that Charizard, not going to be able to move this turn, as we did see two switches in this board state. The Frostlass just switching out for the Toxapex, having a little bit of a better matchup in Charizard, where that King Gambit deciding not wanting to play in front of Sneasler, switching out, going to the Garchomp, and it's just going to be a wide guard for this Toxapex, trying to prevent any Heat Waves.
Yeah, no Heat Waves or Earthquakes active, and calls it perfectly. The Sneasler is able to stay on the field and not be KO'd by that Earthquake. Also importantly, the Toxapex not going to take that super effective Earthquake either. Dire Claw, the move of choice for Mateo. Can it roll a status effect into the Charizard? No dice. Covers for the wide guard on Connor's side. Didn't fully commit to the Heat Wave, and the Earthquake gets the KO with the Weather Ball, knocks out the Sneasler for its troubles, and critically, even though you didn't get the Earthquake knockout earlier in the turn, you take the knockout and keep the Toxapex from spreading damage with the Infestation. However, it gives the opportunity for the Frostlass to enter the field with the weather already set on the Charizard, potential to go for a modest Blizzard against two prime targets after resetting the Sunlight to Snow.
We'll just have to see what happens. Connor has to think about, do I want to lose this Weather War with the Sun? If you go for the Mega Evolution on the Frostlass, it's going to set that Snow's Warning ability, bringing down the Snow. Going to be giving a defense boost to any Ice-type Pokemon. And the Toxapex still hasn't taken any damage because it did go for that Wide Guard earlier on, protecting from the Earthquake, so it could start going for those Infestations to just rack up the passive damage and, more importantly, trapping Pokemon into the battle. King Gambit is going to be switching for this Charizard Y, but the Toxapex is also going to switch into this unknown fourth Pokemon. It's going to be that King Gambit.
Yeah, another really proactive switch out from Mateo. Gets the King Gambit in, which, as mentioned, has the low kick against the opposing King Gambit on Connors. You now have you have the Snow active, having gone for the Mega Evolution, getting Snow Warning set up, so now you can go for Aurora Veil or the Blizzard. It is a faster Garchomp than even the Frostlass, but it does go for the Aurora Veil, maybe expecting a Protect from Mateo, a Protect on the Garchomp. Went for the more defensive play, could have gained a little more ground from the Blizzard, however would have also incurred an immediate switch back in of that Charizard potentially.
Yeah, Frostlass is not known to be a tanky Pokemon. Obviously, you do have access to the Snow boost in the defenses for Ice-type Pokemon and the Aurora Veil now, but you're staring down a Garchomp that we know is faster. It hit with a Dragon Claw first, and this King Gambit is also threatening with a Sucker Punch into a Ghost type, so we'll just have to see what happens. Protect on the Frostlass, just going to let it survive an extra turn.
Yep, another Protect on the opposing... the Protect, I believe, on Connor's King Gambit, so not susceptible to a low kick. Oh, Earthquake comes out. The double effect of being able to protect in front of that, not going to take a Blizzard, but will not KO, but be able to hit the opposing King Gambit while leaving yours scot-free. That's a lot of damage. Looks like it might have been a critical hit through the Aurora Veil, would have done a fair amount less damage, maybe not even a 2-hit KO based off the damage we saw, given that the crit does ignore the Aurora Veil in general, in addition to the additional damage. However, maybe could get a KO with the Sucker Punch if you're able to score another critical hit, but yeah, things starting to get out of control for Mateo.
Yeah, one would have to imagine right now Mateo is on the back foot. If I had to be Connor, you know that Garchomp is faster. What could happen here? Sucker Punch going to be used into the Frostlass, and despite the Aurora Veil and the boost on the defense, it doesn't matter if you could just get another critical into that Pokemon. The Garchomp going to be using Earthquake. It doesn't really mind if the King Gambit on your side of the field takes some damage. If you can get a knockout in a winning board position, and that is a double KO for Connor. Only one Pokemon remains on Mateo's side of the field. It's going to be the Toxapex in the back.
Yeah, the lone Toxapex, and we see the value of this Jolly Garchomp able to outspeed the Frostlass. Even if the Sucker Punch had not KO'd, you would have followed up with an Earthquake to KO both the King Gambit and the Frostlass in one swoop without any risk. Now it is this Toxapex and the King Gambit. Similar spot as last game, but two additional Pokemon on Connor's side. You can tell that he tastes the victory, the North American International Championships, which he was able to make it to the yeah, really far in the previous formats, but not able to win. Now we do see the turns start to play out. The Kowtow Cleave going to begin chipping away at this Toxapex. In addition to that, first attack from the Garchomp as Infestation does at least start to chip away at the King Gambit, but really more of a formality at this point for Connor.
Yeah, you'll take as much damage as you could possibly get, as the Toxapex is going to get a little bit of recovery from the leftovers. You still have access to this Aurora Veil, but this is a repeat of game number 1, where all you can do is click Infestation and spam those recover attacks in order to just keep yourself healthy. But as the only Pokemon left on the board, this game might as well be over. Connor can just keep clicking attacks into this Toxapex until the Toxapex runs out of moves to click.
Yeah, Mateo enjoying his time on the stage, but I think both of the players laughing, look at each other, knows that the amount of struggle this Toxapex is going to have, even if you wanted to play this purely optimally, maybe you switch out the King Gambit to get rid of that Infestation. There's so little damage this Toxapex can offer to actually win this game. Connor absolutely has this locked down. His last years in the senior division, the last opportunity that Connor has to win the Pokemon International Championship of North America. Can it be this turn? Will it be a few more? We're going to see as the King Gambit goes for one more Kowtow Cleave, just shy once again.
Yep, we do see the recover, so does not go for Infestation, not giving up on the battle quite yet. Gonna get the leftovers recovery too, so we're gonna bring it about to 60% of its HP, as the Infestation still getting the small tick damage in between turns. I don't know if that's going to need to take another turn before the King Gambit is going to be able to go down from an Infestation, potentially bringing in one of Connor's other Pokemon. We do see another Protect, just trying to get additional healing.
Yeah, interesting choice not to at some point bring in the Charizard to go for the Earthquake, but just committed to this game plan, going to continue going for the Dragon Claws and the Kowtow Cleaves without going for the Earthquakes and being susceptible to the Wide Guard blocking that. Toxapex starting to heal up pretty healthily. At least one KO for the Toxapex in this battle knocks out the King Gambit, which it was struggling to do in the previous battle. But now it is going to be really tough to close this out. If it's Whimsicott in the back, you could actually maybe go for an Encore to lock the Toxapex out of any moves, but it is the Charizard. From this point forward, you can, if you want to, go for the Earthquakes and go for these single target Solar Beams just to continue keeping that Toxapex immobile from going for the Infestations.
And now we have the final board state. One would have to imagine that a Solar Beam from the Charizard in the harsh sunlight, bypassing the 2-turn restriction, and an Earthquake might just be enough. But it looks like Mateo also reading that Rock Slide or Earthquake being the optimal move here is just going to be a way that he can keep himself in this game for a few extra turns, as the Charizard now going for the Solar Beam, just trying to get some additional damage in onto this Toxapex.
Yeah, Solar Beam coming out. Let's see how much it does. It's dealing about 60 HP, so after leftovers, it should be able to survive maybe one more, but the important thing is it has to go for Wide Guard every turn in the face of the Earthquake. So whether it KOs it this turn or the next one, Connor is really almost there. Absolutely can see the finish line in sight. The last opportunity to win the North American International Championships. It goes for the Protect, gonna fail, as the Garchomp is gonna close things out with the Earthquake. Finally, super effective damage hitting into this Toxapex that's taken Mateo so far, but the journey ends here as Connor is able to secure his spot as the winner of the North American International Championships. Stellar performance here in this 2-0 victory.
A top 8 appearance in 2024, a top 4 appearance in 2025, finally in 2026 gets to the final table and ultimately wins the North American International Championships in the seniors division.
Turns of game 1. Make its presence known. Toxapex known for being able to slow down those games and really, if you have at least maybe a 2v1, usually get those leads, but the inability to actually poison or infest the Garchomp early enough made it really difficult in those games to close out.
Yeah, the Garchomp, I have to say, is the MVP of Connor's team. It was just threatening so much consistent damage, and also being faster than most of Mateo's Pokemon meant that you could either threaten with a Dragon Claw damage, Rough Skin passive chip damage, or those massive Earthquakes that we were seeing consistently out throughout this battle.
Yeah, we see on the screen an important critical hit, bringing the King Gambit in really low range. Difficult to actually gain some ground and knock out the King Gambit with your low kick when you're taking those attacks, but also the most important turn of the battle, the Sucker Punch Earthquake combo, knocking out that Frost Blast before it could take care of the Guard Chomp, which would ultimately secure the victory for Connor. We can see, yeah, smile on Mateo's face, being a good sport about ultimately the tough loss, but finals, absolutely an incredible performance. And with one more year in the seniors division, time to, get even better in next year.
Yep, congratulations to both players again. Obviously, being in this final table means that they're already qualified for the Pokemon World Championships in San Francisco later in August. So I'm very excited to see if we're going to be seeing both of these Pokemon trainers on Championship Sunday on Worlds.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually the first Pokemon Champions tournament that both of these players have played, neither playing in Indianapolis or Turin. So absolutely an incredible start, and probably going to be trying to carry that momentum into the World Championships, where they'll be playing the Regulation MB. So trying to translate some of that success over there, but a hot start for both of them, as we're going to proceed to the winner's interview with Connor now.
It's a different type of feeling. I was not going into this event, I thought I was going to do terrible. I didn't think I was even going to make top cut. So to be able to make it all the way here, and for this to be my last shot as a senior, I can't even describe the feelings right now.
I mean, this is your third time making it into a top cut. How did it feel yesterday when you realized you'd be competing here on the stage today?
It was an odd feeling. I thought I was gonna, after my round 8 set versus Matthew Henry, where I frankly got quite unlucky and I was tilting a good bit. I thought I was not even going to make top cut. And then I was able to pull it out, and then had a couple really close ones on the end of started today, but I was able to get through and make it to the finals and win.
Well, one thing that the casters were talking about throughout your match was your confidence, especially that turn where you earthquaked into your own King Gambit. What was going through your mind at that point?
Whenever I earthquaked through my own King Gambit, I kind of thought, like, I basically had the game already wrapped up, so as long as I didn't throw, and I was like, I don't need King Gambit's HP very much because I still have a Basket Legion inside the back, so I was just able to get through the board positions with that. The King Gambit's HP didn't really matter, so not much really to say about that.
Fair enough, fair enough. And do you have any advice for anybody who's watching who, might be inspired by your perseverance to make it this far in the tournament and finally claim the title of international champion?
Work with your locals. It's one of the most underrated parts of VGC. The only reason I got here was because of the Florida VGC scene, so, work with your locals. That's my main advice.
All right, Connor, thank you so much. Congratulations again. Do you have any shout outs you want to give to anybody watching now that you are our senior champion?
I want to give a shout out to Carrie and Zachary for helping me prep extremely hard. I also want to give a shout out to all my friends at Spaghetti Comos for helping me throughout my entire journey.
All right, thank you so much. Let's hear it once again for your 2026 Senior North America International Champion, Connor Petrozinski. Let's go ahead and hear Scott's thoughts about that match. Scott, take it away.
Welcome back, Pokemon
finish.
trainers. We just saw Connor being able to take a pretty swift 2-0 victory against Mateo and his team of Mega Frostlass and the Talk Specs. That was holding on for dear life, but just wasn't able to clutch up in the end. Connor, congratulations.
Absolutely. A stellar performance from Connor and absolutely Mateo as well. Two players who have been in the top 4 of international championship tournaments before, but unfortunately it was EUIC for Mateo and maybe the home field advantage for both of those top cuts in NAIC being to the advantage of Connor, as he was able to take the victory in the last opportunity that Connor had to do so in the seniors division. Mateo's got one more shot next year, but I think both of the players are maybe looking not towards next year, but towards the end of the summer at the World Championship, where they're both going to be fighting it out, maybe against each other once again.
Yeah, and we are going to go to another quick break as we are going to get set up for our Masters Division Finals. Francisco Piopero versus Eric Rios coming up next.
Welcome back, everyone. We are back here with the North American International Championships co-streamed by Victory Road. Going to be an exciting match for the Masters Division Finals. Both of these trainers have absolutely done a stellar job to get here. Now only one will walk away the champion. Andrew.
It's been an exciting 2 days of competition, and we're going to be here for Championship Sunday. This is the last event of the North American International Championships. It's going to be the last match as well. We're going to be showcasing the Video Game Masters Division Finals between Francesco Piopero and Eric Rios. We'll get to their teams in a moment, but I think I'm seeing double here. Why don't you tell us more about them?
Yeah, absolutely. We have two of the strongest players in the European circuit and in the world. You know, the entire circuit overall. Francesco and Eric also running a very similar team between the two of them. Both Mega Charizard teams dropping the Mega Floret for some, controversial rock slide users in the Mega Aerodactyls on both of these sides. And the team is decorated pretty similarly. I believe the King Gambits also could be a huge factor, but some deviations. The Rigraph on one side, the Sylveon on another. Just some small deviations, but overall a 5 Pokemon mirror.
Yeah, and definitely want to shout out in top 4. They had to play their respective opponents, and it was such a good matchup. We only get to see these high caliber players so often, only really at international championships and the world championships events, when Francesco Piopero did have to beat Shoma Honami in order to make it into the finals. And Eric Rios had to beat the 2-time international champion Wolf Glick in order to advance into the finals. We're going to see the interview with Gabby now.
Title.
I'm really prepared for these finals. I would like to be a 2 times international champion, but I'm playing against Francesco, great player, so I think I'm going to be a great finals today.
Do you feel like the matchup is in your favor?
I think so, but let's see how it goes.
All right, best of luck. Francesco, you just got top 4 at the European International Championships earlier this year. How does it feel to be finally competing for that title of champion?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. How do you feel about your matchup going into this final battle?
I guess the teams are pretty similar, so we're going to see, I think, similar Pokemon on both sides of the game, and I'll see what happens.
All right. Well, as your final moments on these stage, as finalists, do you have any shout outs you want to give to anybody who's helped you get here on your journey? Eric, you first.
I want to thank all the Koi community that have been supporting. All of them are watching now the finals. Also thanks to Kanekro, all the family, friends. I'm going to try the trophy to home. I'm bringing it home.
All right, Francesco.
Yeah, I want to shout out my family, and I want to shout out Jesus Christ.
All right, best of luck, Pokemon trainers. Please take your seats. Casters, take it away.
Welcome
Absolutely
back in. We just
stellar
saw
interviews
the
from
interview
both those
process
players.
with Gabby to talking to our 2 video game Masters Division finals. They're going to get set up in just a moment, but it's so exciting to see these 2 players play here today.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 of the strongest players at the international stage in this year and previous years. Francesco in 2025 actually played Eric in the top 8 of NAIC, with Eric progressing onto the top 4 and Francesco falling there. However, this season, Francesco doing a little bit better, has a top 4 at EOIC 2026 to Eric's top 8, but incredible performances from both of these players, but they're going to be gunning for the finals victory here.
Yeah, I know. Just thinking about last year where our North American International Championship finals was led by Marco Silva and Federico Camporisi, 2 Italian players. And now we have another Italian player in Francesco, seeing if we can pull off a back-to-back Italian win. Whereas Eric Rios did knock out Wolf Glick as the sole remaining North American player. So let's see if Eric also has the ability to take a win home for Spain.
Yeah, it looks like there is an interview going on the main stage, but back to us for a moment. Yeah, it's going to be an incredible finals between both these players, both having felled a world champion of the Mega Oh, no mic on my end, potentially?
I hear you at least. But as you were saying, Cedric, both players, respectively, were able to beat 2 different world champions. Shoma Honami was able to be the 2015 world champion during the Mega Evolution era of 2015, and Wolf Glick was able to be the 2016 world champion during the format of the Big Six when all of the restricted Pokemon were running rampant.
Yeah, absolutely. So both trainers, absolutely incredible, but yeah, the players we have now are just as good. They were able to beat those trainers. And interesting, yeah, I feel like in those particular formats, those were formats where players were very familiar with playing mirrors, very centralized. And then despite that, in the top 4 sets, very centralized teams, all Mega Charizard focused. But yeah, it was these players who were able to advance and not the others. So 2 world champions on their resumes. They're absolutely happy about that, taking those victories in top 4. But now it's just up against each other. Eric, a international champion from previous years, and Francesco just this year, a top 4. Incredible trainers, but only one's going to come out on top.
Yeah, and just doing a quick preview into their teams, we're going to be seeing, at least at the surface level, a matchup of the 6 same Pokemon. It's going to be the Aerodactyl, the Charizard, the Sylveon, the King Gambit. Oh, I made a mistake. I thought it was 6 out of 6. It's actually 5 out of 6. We do see this Farigiraf on Eric Rios' side, so this could give him a small leg up in this matchup, whereas Francisco is going to be running the Basculegion instead.
Yeah, absolutely. The differentiator there, the Basculegion and the Farigiraf, means that although that Francesco has a bit more Pokemon that can actually swing aggressively, especially with that Laxer Specs later in the battle, Eric has an option to go into a slower speed control mode than Francesco, only having the Tailwind on the Aerodactyl. Having that flexibility can be really important in a mirror. And of course, the Aerodactyls on both sides. There is a small difference. Of course, Ice Fang on Eric's trying to catch opposing Garchomp, which will be important against Francesco's Garchomp. Don't get me wrong, but the Wide Guard definitely can provide a little bit more consistent options against the Rock Slide coming out from Eric's Pokemon.
Yeah, and the thing to also note between these 2 trainers is their King Gambits are slightly different. Francesco is going to be running an all-out offense King Gambit, but deciding to run a Chople Berry, so any income fighting type damage coming out from the King Gambit on Eric Rios' side is going to be nullified for at least 1 turn, so a little bit extra insurance. Whereas Eric Rios' King Gambit is going to be operating with that Focus Sash, again, going all-out offense with 4 attacking moves, but this time having that insurance of needing to at least take 2 hits in order to get rid of on this battlefield.
Yeah, ends up being a bit moot against the opposing King Gambits, where they can both low kick each other, but neither can take the knockout. But against the Charizard, the Focus Sash going to fare a lot better on the King Gambit for Eric. Can lead that a little bit more aggressively and be less susceptible to the Charizard just completely catching it off guard. However, leading the Charizard for both of these trainers is going to be a huge risk with the Aerodactyl in the back. I think Eric does have a little bit more room to potentially lead the Mega Aerodactyl, the Aerodactyl and the Charizard together. Flip that. The Francesco having Wide Guard allows him to lead that a little bit more effectively, given the Wide Guard can be used to block any Rock Slides coming out from Eric's to protect the Charizard.
And let's look at Francesco's little comment at the bottom. He has never won a major tournament before, and this is his first time having the opportunity to play at an international championship final table. This could be an incredible boost to his legacy and resume to cement himself in VGC history.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on Eric's side, has an international championship and I believe 4 regional level titles overall, but is looking to add that 2nd international championship. Not a lot have done that. I know, Marco Silva, definitely the leader with the most international championships. Wolf Glick also having 2, and then a couple national championships when we still had that structure, of course, but Eric trying to join very good company as a multi-time international champion.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it's already coveted to win 1 international championship regardless of your age division, but being able to get more than one, especially in the Masters division. It is a big improvement for your legacy. Let's look at the teams once again, and their accomplishments so far. The best result for Francesco Piopero would have been this Honolulu World's top 64, but also getting into the New Orleans NAIC top 8 last year, like you mentioned.
Yeah, looking across, of course, the NAIC 2025 top 8 for Francesco and Eric, the top 4. Eric was the one who defeated him there in that top 8 match, ultimately lost in the top 4, but head-to-head, at least at this North American International Championship in the top cut bracket, Eric does have that lead. So definitely a chip on Francesco's shoulder, going to be trying to upset Eric at the biggest stage possible.
As we are now panning into both players, very stern faces on both of them, very serious. And let's take a look one more time at Francesco Piopero's team, Aerodactyl, Charizard, both holding the Mega Stone items respectively. So we're going to see dual Megas. Basque Legion Male holding that Focus Sash, needing to take at least 2 hits in order to knock out Garchomp. Having that Rock Tomb attack could potentially slow down opposing Pokemon. King Gambit with the Chople Berry and all-out offense. In the Sylveon, the new Pokemon on the block that's been operating instead of the Floette. It's actually going to be running this Yawn instead of the Hyper Beam that we've seen on other aggressive Sylveon teams.
Yeah, no instant knockout button with the Hyper Beam, with the the difficulty of having to recharge on the next turn, but you do have the Yawn to play a little bit more creatively, force switches out or put things to sleep that otherwise Francesco doesn't have on a pretty offensive team. But looking at the team itself, Francesco actually posted a variant of the team for paid access earlier in the week, I believe a little bit before one of the regionals, but wondering if Eric has actually taken a read up on that to figure out some of the game plans. Definitely going to be, with all of these mirror Pokemon, trying to figure out the exact leads that come out, the exact game plans your opponent goes for, going to be very important. But breaking down Eric's team, we have that Mega Evolution, Aerodactyl and Charizard combination, the Garchomp, Sylveon, King Gambit, and the differentiator from the Basque Legion, that for Rigorath, running the Trick Room, Roar, Thunderbolt, and Twin Beam. Thunderbolt giving it a decent matchup against the opposing Basque Legion, especially in the Sun. Can't take a Last Respects naturally due to the normal typing, and the Sun blocking the maximum damage of the Wave Crashes.
The other thing to note is we do have access to the low priority attack in the Roar, which can force switch outs on your opponent's Pokemon as well as your own. So in matchups where you do want to get your Garchomp or a Charizard and Aerodactyl while in Trick Room, you can use Roar, get the switch out safely after they already attack to bring in one of your Trick Room sweepers like the King Gambit in the Sylveon. It is an incredibly well-built team. We've seen this variant being used by some of the best players in this entire tournament as we enter game number 1 of the Masters Division Finals here at the North American International Championships. Aerodactyl in Sylveon is going to be leading for Eric Rios, and Francesco Piopero is going to be bringing this Aerodactyl and King Gambit.
Yeah, Aerodactyl is trading Unnerve activations. Both could be Jolly Max Speed, so can't really make an assumption based off of which activated first. But the King Gambit and the Sylveon, that's a speed interaction that I really am looking forward to see. Could be a max speed. Really just depends on how the training of both of the Pokemon are. On Eric's side, the Focus Sash makes it a little bit more likely to be max speed, whereas the Chople Berry inclines you to run a bit of bulk and maybe not have the training available to max speed the King Gambit, but the Sylveon is definitely not running the max HP. Does have a chance to have a fair amount of HP, so given the Iron Head on the King Gambit, being able to get a Hyperforce off before that comes out could be a big swing as the battle is commencing. Both of the trainers going to start out, or rather at least Eric starting to battle off with the Mega Evolution on the Aerodactyl. Oh, nope, that was Francesco's, but just as good Aerodactyl on Eric's side, going from the next turn, critically activating second, so the more of those activations we see, maybe at some point we can come to figure out whether one is certainly faster or not. But we are going to see Rockslide coming out right away to start the turn, dealing over 50% to Aerodactyl, and also critically giving the chance to flinch either Pokemon, as the Aerodactyl on Eric's does go for the Tailwind, guaranteeing that the Sylveon will move before the King Gambit here. Let's see what it goes for. It goes for the Hyper Beam. If it were Focus Sash, it were live. Let's see if it's able to tank this hit with all the bulk on it. Hyper Beam comes out and takes the knockout. Tailwind up and a knockout on the King Gambit that was otherwise threatening the Sylveon with an Iron Head or the Aerodactyl with an Iron Head. It's going to have to take a recharge turn, but does at least take a knockout and get speed control.
A high risk, high reward attack with the Sylveon, able to get the Hyper Beam and the one hit KO onto the King Gambit. And now you have Tailwind set up in comparison to Francesco, who decided to use that Rock Slide, but no Rock Slide flinches on either of Eric's side of the field. Now, Eric deciding what he wants to do in this move select turn 2. You could go for Rock Slide, get some crucial damage into the Aerodactyl and Sylveon on Francesco's side of the field, and ultimately try to get Fish for a Rock Slide flinch. You have to keep your Sylveon into this board state, but we're going to go for a wide guard here, so any incoming Rock Slides are not going to be doing anything.
Yeah, and Rock Slide is what comes out fully blocked, and the Sylveon and Eric's side is going to not be able to move. It's going to take a turn to recharge from that devastating Hyper Beam. As the Hyper Voice comes out, cleans up the Aerodactyl for Eric. No longer going to be able to set up Tailwind earlier in the battle, and the HP advantage is starting to swing in Francesco's favor. Has gotten a lot more damage on that Sylveon. Has actually taken no damage, or really just taken the Hyper... Yeah, no damage actually at all on the Aerodactyl and the Sylveon, so doesn't have speed control, so is a little bit wary against this King Gambit, but lots of ability to reposition with all this high HP.
Yeah, you have to think, if you're Francesco, do you want to go for another wide guard to stop yourself from taking extra Hyper Voice damage from Eric Rios' Sylveon? But at the same time, you're not really getting any offensive output off of this Aerodactyl, and Tailwind is still set up for Eric Rios, and Francesco does not have Tailwind active, so that means that this King Gambit could be outspeeding potentially this Sylveon and also this Aerodactyl, depending on how fast this King Gambit is trained to be.
Yeah, if it is a max speed Aerodactyl, no matter how fast the King Gambit is, under Tailwind, it should still be moving first, the Aerodactyl. With the Sylveon, yeah, similar speed stats shouldn't have the outspeed. That is important. It gets the Tailwind off first, means it's not able to be hit by an Iron Head or a Hyper Voice or Hyper Beam, but the King Gambit is trained extremely fast on Eric's side. Goes for the Iron Head, and it is a knockout, not trained with enough bulk to survive that attack, and that's an important KO, following up with a Hyper Voice would have broken the focus act, and it gives the opportunity for Sylveon's Hyper Beam to come out, connecting once again into the Aerodactyl. It's not that bulky of a Pokemon, goes down to the Fairy Feather Sylveon Hyper Beam. That is 2 KOs for that Pokemon. Although the Tailwind advantage has finally gone to Francesco with, I believe, the final turn going next turn for Eric. Can it protect to get rid of that? But down a lot in the Pokemon count.
Hyper Beam is not known to be one of the best moves in VGC history, but when you have access to Pixelate as your attacking option ability, gives your Hyper Beams an extra boost in damage that you need, as long as you can connect. And we've seen 2 Hyper Beams on this stream so far, being able to get the connections. The Earthquake is going to be used, picking up the KO onto this Sylveon and getting some decent damage into the King Gambit. But Eric Rios is able to get a retaliation hit into with this Kowtow Cleave into the Garchomp, and he still has 1 Pokemon in the reserves.
Yeah, 1 in the reserve, but the Sucker Punch not going to be in range for knocking out the Garchomp, and it has finally gained a speed advantage, the one thing working in Francesco's favor, that speed advantage. However, yeah, we saw the Mega Evolution from the Aerodactyl in the back. Unlikely that it's Charizard. Maybe that would be one way you could win, is going for a Rock Slide and seeing Eric not go for the Sucker Punch, and then maybe you get a flinch to yeah, buy yourself a turn to KO it on the next, but most likely going to be the Farigiraf or the Garchomp in the back. Either shouldn't be easily knocked out, or if it is, going to buy some time for the King Gambit to be able to take the KO. But yeah, it is the Garchomp that's going to come in. Does have access to Protect, but with the possibility for the Garchomp to attack and the King Gambit just a Sucker Punch to guarantee you get some damage. 2 Sucker Punches should always knock out the Garchomp. So yeah, I think things looking in Eric's favor despite having the speed disadvantage.
Yeah, right now here, the King Gambit could go for the Sucker Punch, just trying to get some additional damage on the board. It doesn't really mind taking the rough skin damage despite that. Dragon Claw is going to be used into Eric Rios' Garchomp. Not going to be doing enough damage for 1 KO. Might have needed a critical hit in order to get there. Does eat its Citrus Berry, and a Dragon Claw in retaliation is going to pick up the KO against the Garchomp on Francesco Piopero side of the field. Eric Rios is now 1-0 in this best of 3.
Yeah, really well played. Things were definitely scary on the turn 1 with the Rock Slide coming out immediately, and if it is a speed tie, losing that on the Aerodactyls meant you couldn't get the Tailwind up first. I think if that Tailwind doesn't go up, things can go really sideways for Eric. Francesco can maybe just snowball things with his King Gambit and Aerodactyl combination against the Aerodactyl and Sylveon, but because it was able to attack on both Pokemons, roughly a 50% chance either way after connecting the Rock Slides, ends up being a huge boon for Eric. Was able to take that Tailwind to a series of knockouts. We saw 3 of those knockouts come in the Tailwind, and afterwards the damage had been done was enough to be able to handle the Garchomp 1v1. One small detail I want to point out, didn't go for the Sucker Punch into the Garchomp. It is one way that you could lose if the Dragon Claw KOs your own Garchomp with a critical hit, and then Sucker Punch for some reason isn't enough to take the knockout after the Citrus Berry activation. But Eric wisely just goes for the Kowtow Cleave, knowing Kowtow plus Sucker will always KO regardless.
Yes, absolutely. And we did see some crucial speed interactions during that game. Francesco Piopero's Aerodactyl was able to move first. And despite getting the Rock Slide attack into both of the Pokemon, the Tailwind was activated first for Eric Rios to then start sweeping through Francesco's front line. The Hyper Beam was able to pick up the KO into the King Gambit on the first turn, and then was able to follow up later on with additional attacks with the King Gambit and the Sylveon. So let's see if Francesco is going to try to be able to do the same lead. If he wanted to go for Tailwind turn 1, he definitely could, but he still has to find a way through Eric's team because it does operate with the Farigiraf. You do have to be careful trying to play with this Tailwind option when your opponent can set up this Trick Room.
Yeah, also keep an eye. We do, once again, have Wide Guard on the Aerodactyl, so it is possible that both of these players, although they went with Mega Aerodactyl game 1, it wouldn't be so surprising to see Francesco bring both of the Mega Pokemon and go for the Mega Evolution on the Charizard. Given you can Wide Guard in front of the opposing Aerodactyl, the Charizard matches up fairly well against the Sylveon and King Gambit in the back, can dole out a lot of damage, and maybe secure a end game where you haven't had, you've lost all your Pokemon before you're able to take advantage of the Tailwind. As we go into this game 2, championship point for Eric Rios, looking for his second international title, keeping things consistent. Marginally goes for a switch up into the Aerodactyl, but now we have a King Gambit against a King Gambit, fully a mirror lead. And now this Aerodactyl Unnerve on Francesco, I believe, activated first 2 out of 2 times, and also got the first Mega Evolution in the Rock Slide, starting to think that it is the faster of the two.
Yeah, we have to see how this turn is going to play out. Francesco believes he is going to be the first Aerodactyl to move. You could go for an attack with the Rock Slide, or you want to get a Tailwind up to give yourself a little bit of a speed advantage in comparison to the King Gambit. Reminder that the King Gambit on Eric Rios side needs at least 2 hits to take out because of that Focus Sash, whereas Francesco Piopero does carry that Chople Berry. So if you go for a low kick, it's only going to be doing resisted damage for 1 turn, and we'll need some additional subsequent hits to go through. And it looks like Francesco, again, is going to be moving first with this Mega Aerodactyl going for a Mega Evolution.
Yep, starts the turn with the Mega Aerodactyl. We'll see if Eric also goes for it, and it does not. So the Rock Slide's going to come out, do a little bit more. It gains a defense boost on that, but yeah, potential to flinch both of these Pokemon. Let's see if it comes out first on the Aerodactyl. It does get the Tailwind off. That's really important. If it had been a flinch there, maybe you can actually get a double flinch and get the low kick on the opposing King Gambit, but we do at least get the 1. Now the low kick. It's not Chople Berry, it is the Focus Sash. As a result, maybe would have been able to tank that before, but with the Rock Slide chipping away at that Sash, the low kick takes the KO. But once again, Eric prioritizing the Tailwind over immediate damage, and Francesco going for that damage right away. Now the Sylveon on the field, able to take advantage of that Tailwind. However, we saw in the previous battle that the Aerodactyl for Francesco can outspeed the Sylveon in Tailwind, and when the opposing Tailwind is set up, and set up its own. As Eric starts the turn with a switch out, doesn't like the position for the Aerodactyl, goes into the Garchomp.
The Garchomp switching in, going to try to keep the Aerodactyl alive for another turn, as the Sucker Punch does whiff into the Garchomp spot. Tailwind is going to be used to just get set up. As you do see a Hyper Voice, so no Wide Guard. So both Pokemon taking some crucial damage. And more importantly, this King Gambit is now taking a little bit more because of the critical hit. So here we have 2 damaged Pokemon fighting against 2 pretty healthy Pokemon in the Sylveon and the Garchomp.
Yeah, great turn for Eric. Takes a lot of damage and takes none while getting the Aerodactyl out in the case you want Tailwind later. Francesco able to get the Tailwind up now, but given that the Garchomp has taken the field, can threaten the King Gambit with a KO. It's not even running only Earthquake. It does have the option to go for a Stomping Tantrum. With King Gambit having no Protect, it is just going to be a fairly safe Stomping Tantrum if you want to deal damage into that slot. And Sylveon not really in much danger. It will be taking a lot of damage from a Rock Slide if it comes out, but might be time to start fishing for flinches on Francesco's side.
Absolutely. Sucker Punch is going to be used into the Garchomp, just trying to get some additional damage, but does take that Rough Skin Recoil. Dual Wing Beat on a strong attack. Looks like it's not going to be enough to pick up the 1-hit KO, bringing Sylveon down into yellow HP, as the Stomping Tantrum is going to connect into the King Gambit, getting that KO in that slot. So that's 1 Pokemon down for Francesco so far. What does this Sylveon go for? It's just going to be a single target Hyper Voice this time around, and that is going to be another Pokemon KO'd for Francesco. 2 Pokemon remain. Eric Rios right now with a 3-2 Pokemon lead.
Yeah, 3-2 Pokemon lead, but slightly at the Tailwind deficit, where I think it will end for Eric on this turn, and then on the next turn, Francesco will have that advantage. Perfect time, too. The Sylveon would love to be able to outspeed this Garchomp, but yeah, both are the Jolly Garchomps. Could be a spot where, yeah, I think the speed interactions between these Sylveons is going to be most important. The Garchomps can fairly easily just trade Dragon Claws. You could maybe go for an Earthquake for Francesco's Garchomp to try and KO the Sylveon to make sure it can't risk the speed tie and maybe go for a Hyper Beam. Or if Francesco expects to be the faster of the two, can fairly safely go for a Hyper Voice on Eric's last turn of Tailwind. Or if you really want to play safe, you can stall out one turn of yours and Eric's by going for a Double Protect. Both of the players look to be taking somewhat of a defensive posture. Championship is on the line, don't want to take any risks. And it is the Rock Tomb trying to slow down that Sylveon. Let's see how Eric's Garchomp answers back. Goes for the Soft Sand Earthquake. That's going to do a lot of damage to both Pokemon. Let's see quite how much. Not quite a 2-hit KO on both. Really important for both players to know if it does go to a Game 3, but the Hyper Voice screaming at that Garchomp wants it off the field, and off the field it will go. Gives Eric a free switch, but now, yeah, that critical hit probably not mattering, certainly not mattering. Rather, it gives Eric the opportunity to switch in the next Pokemon after the Tailwind has ended.
Yeah, now the Aerodactyl that was in the lead for Eric in this game number 2 does switch back into the battlefield, setting that unnerve, so the Garchomp will not be able to use its berry unless this Aerodactyl feints or goes for its Mega Evolution, which it has yet to do so far. Tailwind on Eric's side of the field has petered away, so you don't have that additional speed boost, making it so that your Sylveon could be moving first in this board state, as the Mega Evolution is going to be activated for Eric.
Yeah, I think importantly, the Garchomp should still outspeed and be able to Dragon Claw that Aerodactyl, even though it is getting so fast as Dragon Claw comes out. Should be able to knock the KO. The Aerodactyl goes down, and Sylveon guaranteed to move faster on Francesco's side. Going to answer back with the Hyper Voice. Is it going to KO? It is going to take that knockout. No ability for Eric to answer back with a Hyper Voice of his own, meaning that, yeah, it looks like we see a game win locked in. Perhaps Eric, I think he had maybe one more Pokemon. Could have been the final knockout, but ultimately Game 2 going to Francesco in a big turnaround. Once again, set up the Tailwind second, was at a speed disadvantage for the first turns of the battle, but was able to find it later on and convert this time to the victory after not being able to do that in that first battle after the Sylveon was so impactful. But let's keep in mind the Rock Slide flinch, very critical on the King Gambit. Probably would have traded low kicks maybe more favorably for Eric had it actually not flinched on that first turn.
Yeah, when you have the King Gambit threatening an Iron Head or a low kick into both the King Gambit and the Aerodactyl on Francesco's side of the field, that is a lot of offense you're missing out on because of the flinch. And then Francesco was able to double target the King Gambit and pick up the KO at the right turn because of the flinch, meaning that Eric Rios was playing at a Pokemon deficit the entire game, and he just wasn't not able to find a way back into that match, falling down one game now. It's one game apiece. The next match is going to decide the winner of the North American International Championships.
Absolutely. Both players leaving the Charizard on the bench thinking the Aerodactyl speed control is much too valuable, and the Mega Evolution ability to boost the speed above the Sylveon and the King Gambit also too valuable to risk bringing the Charizard. We could see a switch up here, but seems like these trainers are confident in their Aerodactyl game plans. However, let's see if there's a switch up from Eric. Ultimately, the Sylveon lead was so effective in Game 1, able to go for those strong Hyper Beams right on turn 1, having gained the speed advantage with Tailwind. However, in Game 2, switched to the King Gambit, which was flinched and not able to take advantage. However, you can imagine, had it gone for a Tailwind and Iron Head in the opposing Aerodactyl, you may have lost your King Gambit, but you would have stifled the ability for Francesco to set up the Tailwind that won him the game. We're going to see if there's an adjustment. Francesco versus Eric, two Titans of Europe, battling it out in North America for the championship, as Eric, returning to his guns, goes for the Sylveon and the Aerodactyl lead, as Francesco, confident in the Aerodactyl King Gambit lead, once again activates on Nerve early. I'm ready to call it probably the faster of the two.
Yep. This is game number 3. This is a do or die situation. Eric Rios deciding to go back to a game 1 lead with that Sylveon. It was able to click the Hyper Beam into this King Gambit, but only because both the Aerodactyl and the Sylveon were not flinched in this turn. What is Francesco Piopero going to be able to do to try to counteract that play as he's bringing the same Pokemon leads he's brought through 3 games so far? Mega Evolution on Francesco's side of the field, going to be activating first.
Yeah, it was an interesting decision last game not to go for the Mega Evolution immediately for Eric. Oh, Eric did go for the Mega. Oh, Oh goodness, Eric went for the Mega first, which means that it is a speed tie. We saw the reverse of that interaction in previous games. This is a volatile turn 1 potentially, as who is going to move first. It is Aerodactyl on Francesco's side, but it is so volatile. Misses the Rock Slide on the Aerodactyl, no chance to flinch, but the Sylveon still susceptible. Let's see what Eric's goes for. Once again, setting up the Tailwind, but will Sylveon be able to act through the flinch potential? It's going to swing the game wildly. A flinch! Oh my goodness, that's horrible for Eric. Would have gotten a Hyper Beam or a Hyper Beam off, but instead Iron Head goes into the Sylveon. Crit for good measure, poor measure for Eric, but absolutely a huge turn for Francesco Piopero. Down a game at the initial game 1, but now potentially mounting a comeback after those huge turn 1 flinches.
And back-to-back games, games 2 and games 3, you're able to land the Rock Slide on the crucial Pokemon. You want to get the damage into the Aerodactyl, but it just didn't work out. But you'll take that flinch into the Sylveon in order to pick up the KO, forcing Eric Rios at another Pokemon deficit early in this game number 3, bringing in this Garchomp. Now you have to find a way, if you're Eric, to bring this back without having access to those Hyper Beams and Hyper Voices from the Sylveon.
Yeah, it's a struggle to clear this Kingambit quickly. Even though you have the soft sand of the Garchomp, should be bulky for the Kingambit to be able to survive that. And as a result, should have the ability to go for an Iron Head, potentially into the Aerodactyl to stop it from setting up a later Tailwind, but also Wide Guard threatening, protecting your Aerodactyl fairly well. It is the Stomping Tantrum going into the Kingambit. As I said, not enough to take a KO. Even with the dual wing beat would have been close, as Francesco is able to get the Tailwind that Eric sacrificed to Sylveon to be able to accomplish, as Kingambit still yet to move. Oh goodness, goes for the low kick into the Focus Sash Kingambit on switching. Perfect read, identifies that Eric may need a second Tailwind later in the battle and is going to preserve that arrow. Predicts the Kingambit in the back and brings it down into Focus Sash. Now easily KOable with the Rock Slide, or if you want to go for something more accurate, a dual wing beat.
That was a pretty safe play to make because there is no Ghost type Pokemon in the back. You can go for the low kick. Even if you get a little bit of damage into the Aerodactyl, if the switch in was coming in on the Kingambit, you are getting a complete 4-time super effective hit into it. As we do see the Kingambit trying to go for a Sucker Punch, just trying to get a little bit of damage before it ends up going down. Sucker Punch in return into the Garchomp. Kingambit is going to take a little bit of recoil because of that rough skin, but a Rock Slide coming through is going to take out the Kingambit at 1 HP. Maximum value right now for Francesco. He can taste victory with a 4-2 Pokemon lead here.
Yeah, let's see if Dragon Claw Sucker Punch isn't enough to take the KO. That Aerodactyl is sticking around the field 1 turn longer with the potential to go for a super effective Rock Slide against the opposing Aerodactyl. We saw how much it did in the previous battle, quite a lot of damage, but is it enough to be able to KO the Aerodactyl in combination with maybe a Sucker Punch? We will see, but yeah, at least given that there was a speed advantage, Tailwind was set up delayed by Francesco by 1 turn. As soon as Tailwind ends, Francesco gets at least 1 turn to swing against this Aerodactyl without Protect, not even to mention the low HP Garchomp.
Let's see how Francesco is going to want to play out this turn. He does have 2 very weak Pokemon here. You don't want to accidentally make a mistake at the highest level of competition. Sucker Punch with a critical hit into the Aerodactyl. That's going to do some significant damage, as an Ice Fang on Eric's side is going to be moving before Francesco's Aerodactyl to get the final knockout there. Aerodactyl down for Gifts game number 3, as a Stomping Tantrum is now going to be hitting into the Kingambit. Going to get 2 KOs for Eric Rios, tying this Pokemon count to apiece. But I believe Eric's Tailwind has now dissipated. No more speed advantage for Eric Rios unless he's able to set up another one, as the Garchomp from Francesco fully healthy coming into this battlefield alongside the Sylveon.
Yeah, interesting position where Eric was actually able to win the speed tie on that turn and KO the Aerodactyl before it was able to KO it. The only thing that the only thing giving Eric life in this game is that actually happening. Unfortunately, took a Sucker Punch crit, maybe in range of a Dragon Claw from the Garchomp. It's going to depend a whole lot about that with speed advantage here. Yeah, Francesco doesn't want to take the risk, goes for Quick Attack and Dragon Claw to guarantee that KO, and it is now 1 Pokemon away from taking the championship against Eric Rios, but the Garchomp still to act, can deal a lot of damage with the Earthquake. That Earthquake is going to need a 2-hit KO on both of these Pokemon on this next turn, otherwise it will fall to a Dragon Claw or a Hyper Voice. Eric Rios has had some luck in this tournament with no Rock Slide, only option to win this game, maybe a double critical hit and winning the speed tie with the Garchomp. Francesco, to his credit, only needs to survive with 1. Earthquake comes out, it's going to be attacking first. Is it going to get the double KO? Neither KO, and that is going to do it. Francesco Piopero, the Garchomp eats the Citrus Berry, calm as ever. The Dragonclaw is able to KO, and Francesco, oh my goodness, taking his first victory at a major tournament, and what a tournament to do it at the international stage. After reaching the finals of a previous regional championship, the international is where that first place victory finally falls.
And look at him taking in this moment in a very, very close game. Number 3, Francesco Piopero, able to take it home for Italy in back-to-back years. He is going to be your Masters Division international champion.
Yeah, absolutely popping off. That signature pop-up, he loves doing that. Did it in his top 4 victory as well. But both players, incredible. I know they played a whole lot at tournaments before, but this time Francesco at North American Internationals, previously felled by Eric Rios, gets the demon off his back and is able to beat him where it counted, absolutely in the most important moment. Yeah, incredible play to both players. I'm sure Eric would have loved a couple of those flinches back on his side, but absolutely got a few of those throughout his run as well. So it is what it is. Those are how the chips fall here, and Francesco comes out on top.
Yeah, and this was a completely volatile match. We didn't even know until later in this set that the Aerodactyl on Francesco and Eric Rios were speed tying. So the activation of the Tailwind and the Rock Slides for both parties could have gone either way. It just went in the favor of Francesco, able to get the Rock Slides at the key moments in Games 2 and Games 3 against the Kingambit and the Sylveon.
Yeah, that Sylveon not getting to go for the Hyper Beam. We saw exactly how that game 1 goes if the Hyper Beam connects. Granted, Francesco had the opportunity to play that game a little bit differently, having learned a bit how Eric was going to play that game 1. But I'm sure he was absolutely happy not having to make those adjustments, just using the pressure that he got from the flinches to continue just hammering Eric with all of that damage.
Yeah, congratulations once again to Francesco Piopero, able to take it home. Again, this is his first major tournament win ever in his career. Not even a regional championships yet so far, but in international championships. That is an incredible feat to accomplish in his career.
Yeah, I think this is a team that Francesco's been working on for quite some time, had posted it online, said this is the best team in the format, this is how you use it, and continue using it himself. And absolutely, we see how perfectly trained the Pokemon were, how refined that team was. The Earthquake, not a 2-hit KO critically on either of the final Pokemon. As a result of that, had a very safe route to victory. He's going to talk about that route to victory in this interview right now with Joe Brown.
There were some hyper beams. There was a lot of back and forth. How'd you have the composure to come back in that set?
Oh yeah, after game 1, I think I had great odds of winning that game actually, but some things didn't go my way. So I was like, yeah, he has to get them again in order to win. So I just played, and yeah, if he gets it, he gets it, but nope.
And both of you had very similar teams, right? Both Mega Charizard and Mega Aerodactyl. A format dominated by Mega Follette. You both chose to have Sylveon instead as your fairy attacker, and Sylveon was great there. Why were you so confident that Sylveon was the right call for this event?
I like Sylveon because it has a great special defense, and also allows people to use a team that doesn't require having Floette in the game. I likely have mine because I stole it from my brother, and he wants it back, so yeah. So I didn't play it because otherwise he would have said, yeah, only thanks to my Floette, you know. But no, his win is also his, so ciao, GG. Yeah, Sylveon is great because it has spread damage, and I can use double Mega, basically, because when they play Floette, I play with Sylveon using the Fairy Aura and with the Sun. So I have like double condition, my Fairy Aura, because it's also mine, because like it affects all the field, and the Sun, right? So because Charizard, I think, is broken and needs to be used in most games, as many games as possible. And so like I didn't like having both Floette and Charizard, because when you don't Mega Ball Floette, it's not really a good Pokemon, right? So yeah, I like Sylveon. Also because Sylveon allows you to play with Aerodactyl better than Floette, because Floette is more fragile, right? So it needs a priority speed control, right? While when you play Sylveon, you can use Aerodactyl, which is broken, and you can Rock Slide your opponent, so I like that, yeah.
Now, Francesco, you joined the illustrious list of Italian international champions in the Masters Division here in VGC. We talked with your friends before. We know you want to prove you're one of the best trainers in the world. You proved it here today in New Orleans. How much does it mean to you to be representing Italy in this moment?
I can just say one thing. La Coppa rimane a casa!
All right, last one for you so you can celebrate with your friends and loved ones. Any shout outs that you'd like to give to them?
Yes, I want to shout out the friends that helped me prepare for this match this morning, first of all. So Flavio, Federico, Marco, Giulio, and Justin that were in the room with me, along Stefano, Giuseppe, and Luca. So thank you guys, thank you very much. I want to thank my team, Team Aqua, which helped me make this a reality. And most of all, I want to thank my family. I spoke with my father before this tournament. He was not sure if I should go because I sacrificed so much for this game, and he feared I was risking, to go in a burnout. So for my health, he cares a lot about me, and said, Francesco, I don't know if this is the right move for you. I think it's a huge gamble. I looked at him in the eyes, and I said, exactly, it's a huge gamble. And he said, the final decision is yours, and I decided to come. And, well, here I am today.
And the rest is history. A round of applause, Francesco Piopero. All right, we're going to get ready to close out the show with the dynamic trio of Scott, Lee, and Sierra.
Welcome back, Pokemon trainers. We just saw some amazing matches in the juniors, seniors, and most recently the Masters Division Finals. Francesco Piopero able to come back in that 2-1 win in order to cement himself in VGC history with his first major tournament win.
Yeah, and just one of my favorite champions, just an exemplary interview as always. He's just always so eloquent and interesting to listen to. Clearly thinks very deeply about the game and how it affects him. And was able to take the championship here. I know he mentioned the father, saying this was a gamble, but absolutely the gamble in this case paid off. So congrats to Francesco Piopero, and congrats to all the previous winners in both the juniors and the seniors division.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see how the matchup was going to play out. In the Masters division, both players not bringing their Mega Charizard Y, which is one of the best Mega Evolution Pokemon, if not one of the best Pokemon in the format, realizing that the importance of Mega Aerodactyl in order to gain speed control and also potentially get those flinches mattered most in the matchup. Regardless if you are going to speed tie, sometimes you have to do a little gambling.
Yeah, absolutely. And Charizard ultimately taking the event. It was always going to be Charizard and a Rock Slide user. I think I had some pretty good picks. I had Charizard and the wrong Rock Slide user in the Tyranitar, but the Mega Aerodactyl absolutely showing its worth in the finals, just setting up Tailwind and making things winnable for both players, and then Rock Slide taking over the game as it tends to do for Francesco to close things out. But that is going to do it for our Victory Road co-stream of the Pokemon VGC North American International Championships. It's been a blast on my end. Of course, I'm Cedric Bernier, and I'll let you do your outro as Andrew.
Yep, it's been an amazing few days. Shout outs also to our other co-casters, Matt Maynard and Evan Latt. He was awesome in order to work with, and it's been a pleasure to be able to cast the finals of the juniors, seniors, and Masters Division finals with you, Cedric. We are going to be wrapping up. Please go check out the main broadcast in order to see the closing ceremonies. That's going to be doing it for us. Please have a good rest of your day.
Actually, just to halt that, we are going to stay on the stream for the co-stream just a little bit. We are going to wait for the trophies, of course, to celebrate the trainers who have been playing in all of the games throughout all of the age divisions. Of course, we got to get them their trophies, and we will see. I know personally, I am super excited about I'm super excited about seeing potentially if there's any announcements at the end of the tournament. That tends to happen more at the World Championships, but of course, with Regulation MA ending soon and MB starting to initiate a little bit, we've seen a little bit of teasing on the Champions Twitter account with the presence of some Raichu X, some Raichu Y, and then of course, I think we're all excited to see if there's any of the ZA Mega Pokemon that are going to be coming. Are there any Regulation ZAs that we don't know about yet, Andrew, that you're excited to see?
I know a couple of my friends have been very interested to see what Mega Glycopod has to offer in VGC history. It's not been the best Pokemon, but it did have a surprise appearance most recently at one of the recent World Championships where I believe it got top cut, but ultimately did not make the final top 8 of the World Championships. That's my Pokemon to look out for, because if it can get rid of that emergency exit ability for its Mega Evolution, it could have a chance to be one of the best Pokemon around.
Yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to Mega Barbaracle whenever we actually get that. I feel like it's a Pokemon that it definitely has its weaknesses, of course, shifting away from the, I believe, water typing, but still keeping the, I think the ground weakness is truthfully the most important issue if the metagame stays really similarly. But depending on the ability, I think it could be very strong. It's got a bulky and strong stat spread. I think the typing, Rock, of course, very strong against the Charizards and the Aerodactyls, and then fighting solid against King Gambit, which, as we mentioned, was at 70% usage. Andrew, you projected bravely that King Gambit would be a good Pokemon going into this tournament, jumped up from the 50% or whatever it was on day one up to a even more impressive 70%. Yeah, absolutely a Mega Pokemon I'm looking forward to, at least to fell that deadly chess piece.
Yeah, I know that when I was picking my caster predictions, I picked King Gambit last because I thought it was a little bit too obvious. I had Cleavor and Whimsicott, but King Gambit just deciding to prove that it was the best Pokemon in the format, regardless of it does have that Mega Evolution or not. As we're also going to just take a look again at our winners of the North American International Championships. Once again, congratulations to Eric Rios being our finalist and Francesco Piopiero being our champion.
Yeah, absolutely impressive finish for Francesco. Just back and forth matches. I feel like throughout the North American International Championships, incredible play, and then Francesco was just part of that group. Sometimes it comes down to trying to game plan, making it really solid, but if you keep it in shape with the rock side, absolutely comes out to make things a bit easier. Eric Field is third place, didn't get an additional IC for his resume, and then Shoma Hanami, top 4, definitely respectable, his biggest international tournament finish yet after the 2015 World Championship victory.
Yeah, I know that Regulation MA is about to come to a close, and we'll get some news about Regulation MB in just a few days' time. But it's definitely important to note some of the strongest Pokemon here is going to be the Mega Charizard. Why, if I did my calculations correctly, 6 out of the top 8 trainers did use Mega Charizard wide alone, and I believe it's about 4 or 3 of the Pokemon trainers here also had Mega Floette. So those were the 2 highest usage Mega Evolution Pokemon in the format, and just following alongside the Mega Frostlass and Mega Scovillain that Marcus Dion used.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that it's possible that in this top cut, or at least this microcosm of the metagame, the top 8, we had the Mega Aerodactyl at 3 usages, and then the Floettes had 1, 2, 3 as well. So it actually matched up pretty well. Pokemon that at the start of the format, because in previous formats, Mega Aerodactyl, not especially high usage or really respected very much at all, but proved to be really effective. I think the changes to dynamic speed and the speed boost it got after the Mega Evolution, allowing it to outspeed threats like Choice Scarf, Basculegion, which are otherwise really hard for Pokemon in the format to deal with, outside of just being a King Gambit and knocking it out with the Sucker Punch, proved to be a big factor in its rise to usage and ultimately being on both of the finalist teams here.
Yeah, something I also want to shout out is that out of the 8 teams in the top 8, 6 of them had dual Mega Pokemon. Only Wolf Glick and Dawei were running single Mega Pokemon. And some of the time, especially for Dawei, deciding to not bring a Mega Evolution Pokemon at all, deciding on the more backbone defensive core with the Ceruledge, Sinistcha, Milotic, and Incineroar. But this has to show that Mega Evolution, if it's still going to be available in Regulation MB, that dual Mega Pokemon could just be the way to go.
Yeah, I'm excited to see if the item distribution remains the same as it was in MA. I think a big factor in these double Mega compositions is a lot of the time the powerful items like the Choice Specs or maybe the Choice Band that you would otherwise slot to get a really strong Pokemon that covers the matchups your Mega maybe struggles in. You didn't have that available. The best you had was maybe a Choice Scarf. And so as a result, some of the trainers relied on a double Mega just to cover the respective matchups that the other was weaker in. But we did see a lot of Pokemon that proved to be on that higher end of the power level, represented at the highest level. The Basculegion, Garchomp, Sneasler, and King Gambit identified really early. But towards the end of the format, yeah, we see these interesting Pokemon, particularly the Sylveon, which is able to match up pretty well into a lot of the top meta Pokemon, while also having that high power level, while only using the 1.2 times boosting item of the Fairy Feather, as we're going to take a look once again at our champions in all the age divisions.
yeah, once again, congratulations to Damon Zhu coming back to the North American International Championships. He was here 2 years ago at the final tables, just falling shortly, as we are going to go back and talk to us for a little bit. So Cedric, I want to ask you, what are you most excited about to hear, and what is on your bucket list for Regulation MB?
I think I'm really looking forward to seeing really the items. I think that could shake things up a fair bit. However, on some level, I've kind of enjoyed these more limited items format that Champions MA introduced to us. It's caused people to be a lot more creative about their defensive play. You don't have the assault vest. You can just slap on your Incineroar. So where your Citrus Bearer, your Focus Sash, etc. goes proved to be a really important decision in team building, to the point where we actually saw in previous format or previous teams, like there was a top 8 team by a player who was using a Mega Garchomp. And I think in previous formats where you maybe would have used something like a Life Orb or something like that, that would have been the move of choice. But because of the lack of the items, we've actually seen people get really creative with their Mega usage, which is, I think, given that we brought the Megas back, an important factor. But we're going to send it to Rosemary Kelly, who is sharing the stage with Pikachu for the trophy ceremony.
Congratulating our NAIC finalists. First up in the junior division, our video game junior finalist, Asher Garrett. Now give a round of applause and congratulations to your video game junior champion, Damon Zhu! On to the senior division. Let's hear it for our video game senior finalist, Mateo Boschmans. Now, give it up for your video game senior champion, Connor Petrozinski! Now, time for the Masters division. It's your video game master finalist, Eric Rios! And a huge round of applause for the video game Masters champion, Francesco Piampero! Trainers, raise those trophies in the air and let's hear it one more time for all of your video game finalists. Trainers, thank you all so much for showing us how it's done this weekend. You may now leave the stage and go and celebrate your accomplishments.
Welcome back, and congratulations once again to all of our finalists and champions at the North American International Championships for the Junior, Senior, and Masters division. It's been a wonderful day to see everyone's great competition, and we're so excited to see everyone in the future.
New Orleans for hosting us since 2024.
But as we look ahead to the 2027 season, you might be wondering what we have in store. Well, we've got a little sneak peek for you.
Chicago. We cannot wait to see you there next summer. But let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. There's still one stop left in the 2026 season, and it's almost time to see who will be our world champions.
Pokemon XP and the 2026 Pokemon World Championships will be taking place this August in San Francisco, California, and we are excited to share a few details about what fans and competitors can expect from this unforgettable weekend.
Well, it sure looks like there's going to be a lot to do at Pokemon XP this summer.
But wait, there's more. We've also got a first look at the reveal of this year's World Championship promo card.
Incredible group of Pokemon waiting on our promo cards for this year's World Championships. Not only are we continuing the tradition of the Paradise Resort promo card, but we also have a new Pokemon XP promo card to celebrate this event.
And also, don't forget the Pokemon OP exclusive World Celebration Tournament prizing, which includes the World Celebration Pikachu promo cards. Visit your local Play Pokemon stores between August 21st and August the 30th to participate. You can find a Play Pokemon store near you by heading to Pokemon.com/events.
Countless trainers have battled all season long for the chance to compete at the Pokemon World Championships. For our final reveal, let's take a look at some of the exclusive items available for those who earned their 2026 Worlds invites and to the select few who will become the World Champions.
There are so many amazing pieces included in this year's welcome kits, but I'm especially loving the design of that backpack and playmat. These welcome kits will be provided to qualified competitors competing at the 2026 Pokemon World Championships.
And trainers who earn the coveted title of 2026 World Champion get a chance to look forward to those gorgeous white and gold items from the exclusive World Champion line.
For the most up-to-date information about Pokemon XP and the 2026 Pokemon World Championships, check out the Pokemon XP website and the World's website.
With that, it is time to say goodnight. But first, we want to thank you all so much for being here today. Whether you're here with us in the audience or you're watching from home, you are all part of what makes this Pokemon community and all of these events so special.
Let's also take a moment to thank our fantastic event staff, professors, and production crews. These events would not be possible without the work that you all do.
As we look ahead to Worlds and next year's competitive season, make sure that you check out Pokemon.com/broadcast and follow our Twitch and YouTube channels so you never miss a second of that action.
In the meantime, rest up, keep training, and remember, as a great Pokemon trainer once said, wonderful dreams and ideals give you the power to change the world. Good night!
Wow, what a closing ceremony. Honestly, really excited to see all of the announcements for both Pokemon XP, the World Championship in San Francisco. Really excited about that jacket. I know I won't be competing for the World Championship to get the jacket, but whoever gets it is a definitely lucky person.
Yeah, I think I have to be most excited about NAIC moving to Chicago for the foreseeable future in the 2027 circuit. It's going to be in a huge venue in downtown Chicago, and I'm very forward to looking to that.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple years in Indianapolis, Columbus, and now NAIC, but we're passing the torch to Chicago for next year's North American International Championships. But looking towards the closeout of this one in New Orleans, it's been a wonderful tournament, excellent champions all around. But it is coming to an end, the Victory Road co-stream of that tournament. So I'm going to be signing off. My name is Cedric, and of course we have Andrew on the other side of the mic. Don't stay tuned. We are closing out for the day.